camera perfect that time.
Mm-hmm.
I have to set it
this
up
stuff
every
too.
time. Oh yeah, you're good.
Do you do it every week? Is this a weekly thing?
Yeah, I try to do once a week.
Yeah.
But you were saying you're married to him because he was a culmination of all the guys that you dated.
Yes. I think I posted, I don't know, like somewhere in 2011. Maybe it's not when I met him. I don't know. I just said, I just want like the innocence of my first love and the passion of that one in my 20s and the laughter of my best friend. And then I met him and he was like all those things. But then he reminded me of you too. I was like, he was like, you really are like every guy I ever went on a date with.
Yeah.
I didn't go on a date with you guys, but anyway. He's really nice though, so you should stop by if you ever, even if you don't remember him.
I think the first time his dog was out there, I stopped and I had a short little conversation with him.
Yeah.
I think he was out there smoking.
Yeah.
Like, hey, how you doing, man? Your dog's so sweet.
Yeah.
She lets me pet her.
You both are so friendly and like that. I could see you hitting it off and being friends. Look at me. I'm just like trying to like hook him up with friends. He's nice though. We're still friends. So.
I love his dog. His dog is so
sweet. I can't figure out what color to call her. Like I try to describe her to people and I'm like, I don't know. She's like silvery but goldish.
She's almost like a paint to me.
Yeah.
A little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah. Just a hint.
Yeah.
Of it.
That might be what it is. She's kind of.
No, she's a little bit weird. That's my favorite part about running.
Mm-hmm.
Is the dogs that I meet. Yeah. Well, because I run from. So do you live in Bethany?
No, Yukon.
Okay. So, but you have lived in Bethany.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I run from here to Delisi, around Delisi and back. It's a regular run for me.
Yeah.
And when around Delisi, there's always dogs. This is my favorite.
I bet.
And in this neighborhood over here, I met this big old boy. His name is Clyde.
Oh.
And now anytime I'm running and he sees me, I stop and I go like this, and his owner lets him go and he runs up to me.
What kind is
so sweet. I have no idea. I have no idea. I just know his name is Clyde and he's sweet.
That's awesome. Dogs seem to love me. Like, I will say I'm not a dog person and I'll be like, I just don't like animals. And I think it was Ryan, my boyfriend, just like rolls his eyes and he's like, are you kidding? Because every time I see an animal, I'm like, oh, they're so sweet. And dogs, but I don't think like I want like, a farm with a ton of animals. And I just don't want a whole bunch of animals. But they always, I mean, I see people in their homes all the time. Mm-hmm. And no matter what, the dogs are like right on me. I mean, all the time. Like, so I'm just used to it. I'm like, I don't know why. Like,
how many animals do you have?
Well, now I have 3, but none of them are mine.
That's why my dogs were on you as soon as you walked in. They smelled your dogs.
It has to be what it is, because I am just not a dog. I mean, I'm not a dog person. I like them. I want them to be fine and happy and healthy or whatever, but I don't like search them out. I'm not like on Facebook groups and rescues and all that, but yeah, they are always. So maybe it is that they just smell my animals. But I get it. I do get it all the time, though, where people are like, they're never like this. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Why do you not have people over, maybe? I don't know.
Do they just get super excited?
Yeah.
Like over?
Yes, and they want to get on me.
Well, my dogs weren't overly excited.
No, your dogs are well behaved, but they'll just like want to sit on my lap. Like even the bigger dogs are just like on me. And they have to like pull them off. And I'm like, I don't understand. I don't know what it is.
Well, dogs always do seem to have that. They either like you or they don't.
And it might too be that the line of work that I'm in, I'm there to like, because when I think about it, I mean, it does happen randomly out in public, but it's mostly when I'm in someone's home to like help them, then so it might be kind of like how the owner feels about me, or like the owner's like, oh, she's here to help, she's here to do this, and so they're like feeding off of their
dogs can sense that too. I'm sure.
So maybe their owners just really like me.
What are you doing right now? You don't have to say who you're working for.
I do Advantage Case Management. It's like it's a program established by DHS to help keep people out of the nursing home, and honestly, it's like to save the state money. So that if they're not paying for people to be in the nursing home, it's the money. So they pay people to take care of them in their home. But so it sounds awesome, and it can be.
Is it kind of like hospice?
No, it's like so a lot of people sign up because they can get what's called a personal care assistant to come in for an hour a week, do their housekeeping, 2 hours a week, do their laundry and meal prep for them and help them with bathing and dressing and grooming. They're wildly understaffed and they never provide enough hours. So, but I mean, they do home delivered meals. That is
Mhm.
what a lot of people like, and they'll put grab bars and handheld showers in their bathrooms and things like that. And then just having a case manager to ask medical questions and will you call my doctor and do this? It feels like being the emergency contact for like 40 people,
Mhm.
is kind of my
Now, are these just elderly folks, or these elderly folks close to the end of their life?
just elderly folks and even
Okay.
some young. So one of the only real requirement that I have run into is that they have to qualify for Medicaid. So and if they qualify for Medicaid and they have any kinds of like physical limitations at all, then they likely qualify for the Advantage program.
Okay.
So if they're at risk of going to a nursing home, then they'll qualify. They also pay for assisted living.
I don't like nursing home.
I don't either.
I don't. I feel like it's a place where people put people away.
It has,
Like
yeah,
like you put something in a drawer and kind of close it and forget about it. That's how that feels to me.
yeah, and that is fair. I will say, whenever I was in nursing school, I always said I'm never going to work at a nursing home, and then I kind of just ended up at one by happenstance, and um, it was different than I thought it would be. I mean, I kind of hit like the gold standards of nursing homes. The director there, her mom had been the administrator for years, and she just knew every resident. I mean, she knew every resident, what meds they took. She knew their family members. Like she was just incredible. Um, and I worked there about 13 years, and those first 10 years, I mean, they just made huge strides. And like, this is where these people like live.
Mhm.
This isn't like a hospital. This is their home, and we need to make it like their home. And they did really good about that. And it was out in a more rural area, so staff really did stay. Like you would have people like longevity just because they didn't have other options, like places to work. Um, so that was good. But you would either have families that visited every day or families that they had their schedule, they were going to come every single week at this time and they were involved. And every time you called them, they answered the phone and they were super involved, whether they could be there or not. Or you have the people who literally were just like forgotten about, like they didn't have. And what's sad is that even in the best facilities, what is it? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Like
Mhm.
they say, like you want your family member to get good care, make your presence known. And that's just, I mean, that's just how it is. It's just, and that's what's infuriating as a provider because I I would want to treat everybody the same, like so why is it that it was just like in these nurses and these nurses aides and even the administration, why was it kind of their go-to to give more care to people that the families are going to complain?
Yeah.
It felt more like self-preservation than about the patient. And
Mm.
so I quit there in 2023 after a long time, 12 years, I think.
Didn't believe in it anymore.
Mhm. No, my grandmother was a resident there, and what was there was just staff members that I thought were really, really good until, I mean, and I worked 16 to 24 hours a week there. I mean, I knew these people, and I just kind of saw a different side of it, which I didn't think was possible. I mean, I was there through COVID. I made personal connections to residents and their family members. I mean, I knew this place, I thought. But yeah, I kind of just saw a different side of it. And I guess there's only so much you can see when you're there for just a shift, but
Yeah.
and you don't come back for another week. Well, it was like a day to day. I was her like healthcare proxy. And so like I knew everything. I knew everything that was missed. I knew how those mistakes were handled. I knew just more than I wanted to. And I mean, it wasn't just the nursing home why I quit. It was kind of like the whole healthcare field has been weighing on me some. So
Well, that's big news right now too.
I try to stay out of it.
Yeah. No,
Um,
a CEO of a big healthcare
oh
company.
yes.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah, yeah, it
That's
is.
the only reason it's big news. Samuels, nobody's robbing the house.
I would love it if the little ones are louder.
Gus is.
Yeah.
He's actually a Sam, that's enough. It's okay. Thank you for protecting us. We're good. Thank you.
I mean, it's good though.
No, that's his job. That's his
Yeah.
job. That's what
Yeah.
he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
I want people to be walk up and see him barking at the window and
Yeah. And those little dogs are good too because people, I mean, they're not necessarily like they won't like notice them. You know what I'm saying? Like if you have a little dog in the yard, like if somebody's casing your house, they're not gonna like think anything about it. But if they show up in the middle of the night and your little dog is yapping their brains out, they'll leave because they're like, we weren't expecting this. Like I would
yeah.
have been scared of a big dog, but those little dogs will scare them off just from alerting you.
Well, Gus actually, he that's what they were bred for is to be alarms in the palace
Is
of
he
like
Lhasa or Shih Tzu?
Lhasa.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had one, so I remember reading
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
I
they're
thought
great.
that was so cool.
So I lived over off of Council and Expressway. Oh,
hmm
Hunter's Ridge, I think is the apartments. And I lived
Yeah,
in the,
right over there by the Burger King.
yeah, and I lived in the very front, and I had a little Lhasa named Scarlet, and I was at work and at my boyfriend's all the time, but so she just was there all the time, and she, I swear, had the sounds of the cars memorized because it wasn't every car
Sure.
that pulled in the front that she freaked out about. It wasn't the loud cars. It wasn't the motorcycles or the big trucks. It was like a new car that she didn't recognize pulled in and she would lose it. And I was like, man, she's a smart dog. I've never had a dog like that before. But
The dogs can tell when I pull up on a motorcycle.
mhm.
Uh, my old motorcycle, they could tell when I was coming. Like my Rachel would be sitting there. She's like, I could tell you were coming. The dogs popped up and waited for you to come around the corner.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's so
No.
nuts. I mean, it was just nuts to me that she, like her hearing was that fine tuned that she like knew the difference of these
Mhm.
the way these cars sounded.
They
Like
hear so well.
they
It's
really do.
amazing how well they hear.
It makes me wonder what like music sounds like to them because she could hear everything. But it's
I'm
awesome.
sure it's well. I'm sure it's pretty loud because we listen to it loud for us.
That's true.
So I'm sure it's extra loud. But dogs must have a way to tune stuff out because I don't know. There's been many a times I've been jamming out to music and I look over and my dog's just laying there sleeping.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
they must have a way to tune things out.
Yeah, or maybe it's just I don't understand the science or whatever how your ears work, but because I know they can hear at like higher frequencies or whatever, so maybe like the lower ones isn't so much. Maybe it's not louder to them. Maybe they just hear it differently.
I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't know how it works. I don't know the frequencies that music's on though either.
No,
So
I know nothing.
I am
about
definitely not a scientist. No,
Me neither.
we could speculate all day.
Right. I'm good at that. So I have to tell you, it's so crazy. On the way over here, I stopped at OnQ, and I stopped at the one by my house off of I-40 and like Chekhov. And I ran into Sean McDaniel, which I am friends with him on
Okay.
Facebook, and so he was
Just now?
it gets weirder. So he was my first husband that I married when I was 17. I mean, he was my middle school sweetheart. Like,
Sean
no,
McDaniel?
no, his name was Chad.
Okay.
Sean Daniel was his best friend,
Okay.
one of his best friends. So, I mean, we were like this in high school. I mean, like, we were all good friends. So I ran into him and I'm like, that's bizarre. That's so crazy. Like, it's so good to see you. And it made me run here a little bit late. Um, and then I texted Chad, like, hey, I just ran into Sean, and I'm waiting on him to reply. Like, and I was like, you know what? I haven't even looked to see Draws's podcast yet. Like, I'm gonna like hop on and see like who he's had on and like how many views he gets and all of that. And so I popped on and last week you interviewed the man who married me and Chad.
Um, Brad?
Yes.
Brad Porter?
I felt like I was in the fucking Twilight Zone.
Wow.
I was like, how the hell? How? Like, how? Because I mean, Chad and we're friends.
He
so
actually was talking about being a reverend and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You through people from Outback, which is and Sean knew Chad from Outback. And then I know that you know Brad probably from the comedy circuit,
Mhm.
but like
That's how I met Brad.
they're two very different like worlds.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean?
It's
And it
all
just
interconnected.
freaked me out.
The
I
small
was like,
world,
I am
girl.
in the Twilight Zone
It's
right
a
now.
small
Like,
world. That's cool though.
yeah.
That's awesome.
So Brad was my youth pastor from the time I was like, I mean, probably for only a couple years, but it was just like a huge. He had a big impact on my like childhood back,
Mhm,
back then.
mhm.
So yeah, he was my youth pastor probably like I was like 14. I mean, I guess we stayed in contact for a while because I was 17 when I got married and asked him to marry us, and he did. And at his church, and then the next time I saw him, he was doing stand up at
The Looney Bin.
no, Speakeasy.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
remember
it was
Speakeasy. Yeah.
years later and years ago now, but yeah, it was bizarre. I don't know. I was just like, I don't know. It was just crazy.
That is
It
crazy.
was nuts. Like,
That's completely random.
but Sean says hi, and he's like,
Hmm.
"Oh, you're doing John's podcast," and I was like, "Yeah." Like, I forgot John's had a podcast, and I was like, "Have you watched it?" And he's
I
like,
was actually recently thinking about asking Sean to be on.
"Mm, "You should." He's still the nicest guy
Mhm.
ever. I mean, ever. He's such a nice guy, but yeah, small world. And so now I need to watch the podcast with Brad because I
Mhm.
mean, I'll see him
Brad's a good dude.
occasionally. Yeah. Did you meet him at Looney Bin?
That's how I met him. I met him through the Looney Bin comedy and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
I've never watched his I've never watched his stand up. I mean, he had just finished his set, I think, when I arrived at Speakeasy, and I was just like mind blown, because like he was I mean, he was like an excellent, excellent pastor. I think
I'm sure that those two things are completely different too.
oh, I can imagine.
What was that like?
It
Seeing him on because I know what he's like on stage.
yeah,
I know I can visualize him on
yeah,
stage, but I never saw him as a pastor, but I've had youth pastors, so I can
yeah.
imagine kind of how he
It was
was.
it was a very um, small group of us. So my best friend in middle school, no, yeah, it was middle school. Um, his name was Ben, and he went to this Pentecostal church, and I think he just went on Wednesday nights. He may have gone there on Sundays, but somehow he ended up in this church on Wednesday nights. And there's only like 4 people that stick out in my mind. I'm sure there was more of us that were there, maybe like 10 or 12, but
Yeah.
we were a faithful following of it was Brad and a guy named Thomas who played the piano, and I would sing sometimes, um and he was just so he didn't all it wasn't even like I don't remember there being like a stage or a podium even. I have this memory of him just standing kind of like
That's Speakeasy?
no at
Oh,
or
okay.
for Wednesday nights. Like I just have a picture of him standing just like in the front of a room or
Mhm.
whatever. He was charismatic, but not like creepy charismatic. You know what I'm saying? He was just
That's
so,
good.
like he was like
I'm sure he'll be glad to hear that.
he was so I think of the right word, but devout is the right and just very spiritual. I mean, like I
He's a
remember
very passionate
he passionate,
speaker,
yeah, and
and
he just
that's one of the things I love about his presence on stage is he's very
he
passionate.
just felt it. And I personally didn't. I was raised Nazarene, Baptist and Nazarene. And so I didn't, whenever I went to Pentecostal and Assembly of God churches, like I didn't, quote, believe in at 14 of like speaking in tongues. It seemed like they were faking it. I didn't understand it. And, but I just felt the presence of the Holy Spirit so strong in that church that I thought, well, it can't be fake. Like I know I'm feeling it. So I know that whatever is like prompting them to have this experience is legit.
Mhm.
Um, so seeing him at Speakeasy was crazy, to me, because I was just like just shocked by the fact that he had like gone away from it, like but I don't know his story. I don't know what if he actually was led away from the church or
Yeah.
God, or I don't know anything about that. I just remember just that very like ironic, hypocritical moment of me being like drunk, being like, "What are you doing in a bar?" Like,
What are you doing in a bar?
like
You're
it
supposed to be pure.
really just like hurt. I was like, "What is happening
Well,
here?"
I can see that because I mean, as a child, like he was pure in your eyes, like
Right.
through Christ and
And
everything.
I
Yeah.
think too often, as parishioners, we too often kind of like we kind of like connect God to that pastor,
Mhm.
like, and I've tried to really like teach my kids that like they have had one church that they just really want to go to and they just want to keep going, and I don't want to go there anymore, and so I haven't, and so I'm like, we need to find a new church, and they're like, oh, but such and such is here, and they were talking about their pastor, and I'm like, you need to know that like God is the same at that church. He's the same in your living room. You can have that same experience wherever you go. Like, and so, and I would tell them that. I'm like, it really freaked me out when I saw my pastor like drunk at a bar. I'm like, but that didn't have anything to do with my relationship with God or
Yeah.
God as a person. And really now, like, I know it doesn't have anything to do with Brad's relationship with God.
Yeah.
Like none of that matters. But yeah, it was
But not in your young mind.
no, not in my young mind. Well, I'm plus
Especially because we put those people on pedestals
for
when we're
sure.
young,
Yeah,
so
right. And
once they fall from that, it's ah,
but it's kind of in that same vein of people acting like Christians are hypocrites and that like, oh well, if you were a Christian, you wouldn't do this or that. And I think like I do think we should all like strive to represent Christ, but at the same time, like, no, we're not perfect. No, we're not. In my mind, that's why we need him, is because we're not perfect. I'm gonna screw up. Like, don't judge Jesus based on my actions. Like I'll do my best to represent him, but don't look at my life and decide that whether you should or shouldn't follow. And I think that at the time I definitely wasn't giving that kind of like credit to God or Brad, like for just being human. And
yeah,
but and plus I had just gotten, I mean, I was just divorced and um having my own kind of like spiritual like crisis,
mhm,
like I had divorced the guy that had married me and Chad. And so, your young brain wants to be like, well, maybe it's because my pastor wasn't even really like into it. Like maybe did he ever even have a relationship? Of course he did.
mm,
He was he was awesome. He was really good. He was a good teacher.
yeah,
So I'm curious what his stand up was like. I'm gonna have to listen to that podcast now because
yeah. He's a funny guy.
oh,
He
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 was
uh
always
you you either love Brad or you don't. I gotta say,
he seems like no holds barred. Like
yeah.
he's just gonna say
He's gonna say what's
anything
on his mind.
because he really was always so down to earth and so true. And so I would think that his comedy would kind of be like, you should know him well enough to know he's not trying to offend
He's
anybody.
blunt.
Right. He's not, his goal isn't to offend people. And so if you care enough to like get to know him, then
Mhm.
cool. Like, but if not, then
Yeah, he just wants to make you
yeah. And he made us laugh back then too. So I bet he's good. Is he still performing anywhere?
laugh. I saw him recently. He did a show. He was saying on the podcast that every once in a while he'll do a show, but he doesn't really do open mics
Mhm.
here, especially since the Looney Bin shut down. A lot of people kind of quit doing open mics. Yeah.
So
I
where
was
can we find comedy now?
they have the Bricktown Comedy Club
Mm,
downtown. They do comedy. Just a few of us choose not to go there.
yeah,
That's all.
for any reason?
It's just
A
not our
different
scene. It's a
it's a
different scene. I mean,
yeah.
some I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself. I mean, I don't care for it.
Mhm.
It's a
Probably a
different
different
scene,
crowd. Yeah.
different crowd. I don't. I mean,
The Looney Bin was pretty great.
I enjoy it because it's a place to go and get some stage time. I
Mhm.
mean, they have 2 nights where they do open mics, and that's awesome.
Mhm.
Um,
That would
any
be good.
I would carpet the place.
Mhm.
Well, it's the sound bounces
Oh, yeah.
like it's weird,
Yeah.
you know.
Looney Bin had kind of like an intimate feeling about it. Like, I don't know if
Yeah, I
been to
mean,
Bricktown Comedy Club.
oh, Bricktown's definitely like that. Like, I mean, it's dark in there. Like, definitely an intimate show
Mhm.
for sure. It's
Yeah.
a good venue if you want to go see a comedy show for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not telling anybody not to go there.
Right.
Like, I just choose not to do open mics there. That's
Yeah.
all. But I was telling Brad actually on the podcast. I was like, man, we need to reopen the Lady Bit.
Yeah.
Like, somebody needs to.
Yeah. How long has it been closed?
A couple years now.
I hate that. I hate it that I
I
didn't go back.
I could tell you if I looked at my post. I took a picture.
You know,
We went to the last show.
I went into labor at the Looney Bin.
Did you really?
I did.
From laughing?
I don't think so. No, the guy wasn't that funny actually. But I didn't realize I was in labor because I was 2.5 months early and I just kept having like this pressure like low. And I mean I had twins and so I was just thought it was the weight of the twins. Like
Uh-huh.
I just kept moving around and putting my feet up and moving around. And then I was like, man, this pressure is coming like every 10 minutes. Like it is a recurring pressure. And
Yeah.
so I left Ryan and my friend Vanessa, and I was like, well, you guys
I
go
remember
on.
Vanessa.
Yeah. I was like, you guys go on. And they went to the bar, and I went home. And my grandmother that I was living with at the time was like, you need to call your doctor. So I called. She was on maternity leave, and her on call didn't call me back. And my grandmother made me go to the hospital. And they're wheeling me in, and all these nurses, I look full term, and all these nurses are like, oh, somebody's having a baby tonight. And I was like, so clueless.
Quit it.
I was like, no,
Quit.
I was
Sheesh.
like, no, I'm not. I was like, I'm not due for, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not due for another few months. And
And they're like, no, no, you're having we've seen this.
yeah, for real. Like, I had like nurses everywhere, and I'm just laying there clueless. And I was like, I mean, one's putting an IV and one's putting a catheter and one's like hooking me up. And I was like, so am I having any contractions? Like, because I was feeling down for even being there. I like want to tell my grandmother, like, you're ridiculous. And she's like, you've had 3 in the last 10 minutes. And I was like, oh,
Oh,
okay. But yeah, the loony bin. Like, I remember that. I'll never forget it.
do you remember who was on stage by any
I
chance?
don't. He was an older guy, and I don't remember.
There was a few of those.
Yeah, I don't think he was that funny, but buddy.
So sad with that cone.
I know. Why are you chewing on yourself?
Yeah, he's got the spot on his tail that he won't leave alone. So in order to let it heal, we gotta
Yeah,
put that on him.
sorry.
Yeah.
If you could speak English, we could explain it to you.
He's still hard headed. He's the biggest baby. Oh my goodness.
See, how old is he?
Shit. My wife could tell you. I think he's 8 or 9.
I know.
Samuels, you do not be rude. Do not be rude to our guest.
Talking. I'm sorry.
Out there, he'll get you with that cone.
Mhm.
He'll pop his head up, hit your arm. Do you see God in the work you do at all?
Hmm.
Working with the elderly
Um,
or patients?
I yeah, I mean, I think we've had these conversations. I tend to see it everywhere, like miracles and things that are like meant to be, and like I try to see signs and stuff kind of everywhere. Um,
Is there anything that stands out in your head?
I think hmm,
Sam, leave her alone.
it's okay.
It's your
I
dogs.
think what's really um I see like love a lot. And if God is love, then yeah. But I think it's specifically in this case management, it feels a lot like social work. And I have throughout my career, I started in the hospital and then the nursing home, and then I started working home health because nurses work multiple jobs at once. So I started working in home health. And then
Stop. Sorry.
oh.
The code got stuck. Go ahead.
And you're fine. And then this case management, I just have gotten closer and closer to people's like personal lives.
Yeah.
And in this line of work, I have seen oh
Sorry.
okay, baby. What is this? Oh, there it is. I know.
Sam, go lay down, buddy.
I wanna. People's commitment to caring for each other has been really like impressive. Like like daughters and sons who just pretty much give up their lives to take care of their parents is really incredible. I
Yeah.
mean, like just inspiring, and I'll just tell people that. I'm like, listen, like they'll thank me, oh, thank you so much for getting this for us or for doing this. And you've been such a wonderful, like blessing to us. And I'm like, man, no, like, I mean, you're welcome, but like, it's insane that I get paid to help people. Like, that blows my mind that that's a thing. And but getting to witness what these people do for each other is, I mean, that to me is seeing God, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's definitely it's love, and that's been a blessing. And I don't take any of it for granted, or lightly. And I like to, it just makes me more like appreciative, and just like see things a little bit like differently. So it's been, yeah, I guess you could say I see God in it.
That's good though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what like a story I heard one time. Like this, this is how I explain to people how I try to. This is how I try to love my wife. Okay, this is the story. I don't know if it's true. It's a story I heard one time. Um, but so there's this old couple, and she is in a nursing home because she has dementia, and he shows up every single day and spends time with her and eats. And there are good days and there are bad days. And on the bad days, it obviously really hurts him. He cries. And one of the nurses that worked there was noticed this happen on a regular basis. And one day she stops the old man. She said, and she asks him why he continues to come, because that she has no idea who he
Mhm.
is. And his answer was, because I know who she is, you know?
Yeah.
And that kind of love, like that's
Yeah.
how I try to love my wife,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I think that's a good,
Yeah. It's a good gauge.
yeah,
Yeah, for
like that's
sure.
beautiful. Like
I
it's
remember,
amazing.
I remember I was working on call weekends and I would have 12 routine visits, up to 12. I mean, I would drive to the equivalent of Dallas and back in a day, just these long days. And I got called out on a like as needed visit. Somebody needed a nurse, and no matter what I've done that day or my schedule's like, I've got to go do it. And so you just kind of like grumble to yourself and like, oh, like have all that frustration on the way there, and then try to get your shit together before you walk in because you're not meeting these people on their best day and they need you. And um, every time that I was just feeling like overwhelmed with frustration or overwhelmed with whatever it was, just overwhelmed in general, I would have a situation like this where I walk in and this woman, it was on her birthday and they were in their 70s or 80s and she was bedbound, and this man was managing her catheter and cleaning her up, like, for her from her bowel movements. He fed her. She was a new diabetic, so he was checking her blood sugar 4 times a day. And I mean, he was the best nurse I've ever seen in, his late 70s. And like, she was just so well taken care of, and I just thought, "Man, this is such an honor to see this." Like,
Hmm.
and it just keeps me, it's why I keep doing it. I mean, I just to be a part of that is just it's a blessing because we can't escape, like, the negative things that are gonna happen, like, we can't escape that in life. So to see people, like, handle it with such grace and love is just incredible. Like, I just feel really, really lucky. And um, it has been, I've seen a lot of husbands who have just completely like lived up to that in sickness and in health. And and wives too. I don't know why it sticks out more for me for husbands, but
Because you're a woman,
probably,
because you're on the opposite side.
probably, yeah.
And I mean, that's what you admire in a man, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, probably. I do. I am always, I think I always expect it of the women, like I'm never surprised when it's a woman, but when it's a man, yeah, it's always like touching and surprising to me for some
Well, see,
reason.
it's the same for me. Like, when whenever Rachel was sick, and people would tell me that I'm such a good dude for sticking around. That
Mm.
would that would always baffle me because I feel like that's the woman I love. That's my duty to stick to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But you guys
Like,
weren't married yet, were you?
no, we weren't married when it happened. No, we got married after. But like that's what always baffled me about that
Mm.
though, is because like that's, I guess it's the same way. So like I would expect other men to do the same, and that's when you see other dudes that don't, and like, you're a piece of shit because I know you can do it.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and that's what Don't get me started
It
on that.
didn't surprise me at all that you stuck around. Like, that didn't surprise I mean, because it's you. Like, maybe other men, it would have surprised me, especially working in the nursing home. I knew multiple women with MS, multiple sclerosis, and I'm sure there were others with chronic illnesses or whatever, but the MS stuck out because I have MS. And they were in their 30s or younger, when they were diagnosed, and their husbands left. And I'm talking like from
God damn.
from cheating on them with their home health nurses to and taking their kids and divorcing them. I mean, at least 3 come to mind that their husbands just left. I mean,
Yeah.
they were lucky that their parents would bring their kids up to see them. They're young kids. Um, so I would be surprised if when other men take care of their women, then I get surprised. But I wasn't surprised that you were. I wasn't
I
surprised that
appreciate
you
it. Thanks.
Yeah, of course.
I think some dudes are just dickheads. Like
Yeah.
unfortunately, especially nowadays, a lot of people really just care about themselves.
Mhm,
And I think that a lot of people get married for the image of marriage
mhm. I think that's what
as
they're
opposed
supposed to
to
do.
love, you know? Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and I mean, I was guilty for a long time, up until probably the last 5 or 6 years of, like, really thinking that love was, like, an emotion, and it's not. Like, love is it's a verb, and, like, the Bible tells you what love is, and I know, like, I'm not one that has been like, "Well, the Bible says this, so this is how we should handle it," or, like, I've never been a good, like, preacher that way, but I learn it kind of opposite. Like, I always saw love as like this feeling and this emotion, and that's what in love was. And then I like learned, like, oh, well, there's a reason why the Bible describes it as a verb and with adjectives. It's
mhm.
kind and patient and always perseveres and always trusts. Like, it's telling you how to love somebody, like, not how to feel about them. Like, and so for me, like, I don't know, I think that that's what was lacking in a lot of my relationships, and
Yeah.
just not loving like a verb. But you and Rachel, like, it wasn't just because you were a good guy, but man, you had the feelings for her. Like, you
Mhm.
loved her. Like, you were
I still
in
do.
love with her. And so it was just so I was like, of course Draws is gonna stick around. I mean, like, of course he's gonna take care of her because you guys were like serendipitous. So sweet. Like, I was so happy whenever you found Rachel. And man, I did pray so hard when she had her seizure.
They don't know exactly what it was. They found a blood clot in her right arm when she was in her coma,
Mhm.
and they thought that possibly a piece broke off and caused cardiac arrest, and
Yeah.
that's what caused everything
Yeah.
to happen. But they don't know for sure.
Yeah. Which is terrifying, right? I
Yeah,
mean, but
I write about it in my book.
you do? Are you still writing about it, or is it done? Is the book done?
That chapter's all done.
Okay.
That chapter's done.
Yeah.
The other chapters is what I'm currently writing.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah,
Well, I'm excited to read it. Do you have a projected date when it'll be?
I would like to release it in March.
All
That's what I
right.
would like to do.
That's awesome. Do you have a publishing company and stuff, or no? Just gotta find.
Nope.
I'm sure it's more accessible now than years past. I'm sure you can like.
No, it absolutely is. Actually, I just submit to the publishers of the books that I read
Okay.
because a lot of them are regular people writing
Mhm.
books about their lives and how they handle situations. So already those publishing companies are publishing those types of books. So why not submit to those
Yeah,
places?
that's awesome.
So
Well, I
I
really
figure that's
appreciate
the easiest because their names are in there, their address is on there. I
it. Right.
mean, throw a computer chip in a thing and send it off,
Yeah,
and
that's awesome. I would definitely be an
there it
editor.
goes.
I can't stay on point long enough. I mean, like, there's no way. Like, my thoughts are too scrambled. I would have to pay somebody to be like, can you just like arrange this for me? Like, even if you need to
Well,
put chapter
every
one and chapter eight, like,
well, that's actually I have not numbered any of my chapters because I don't know in which order I want to put them in the book.
yeah.
The only one that I know where they're going to go is the last chapter.
Mm.
That's it.
So are you just like writing is about like periods in your life and then like this chapter is about
Yeah,
Rachel.
there's a few multiple. A lot of them coincide.
Mhm.
A lot of it has to do with my addictions with booze and drugs, and then the one specific chapter is what I went, my perception
Mhm.
of everything that happened to Rachel from
Yeah,
my point of view.
right.
Um, and there's a whole chapter on a dude I used to work with that just the type of person that you don't want to be.
Mhm.
You know, you know, one uppers. Do you know what a
Mhm.
one upper is?
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Uh, those fucking people. Um,
They're hard to have a conversation with.
yeah, very, very much so. Uh, there's a chapter on kind of situations dealing with that type of person.
Mhm.
Um, I wrote a chapter on my motorcycle ride across the southeast of the United States.
Nice.
So that's actually the chapter that I'm finishing up right now. That fucking thing is 10 pages long already, and I'm not done.
Well, yeah. I mean, I can't imagine what you
I wasn't expecting it to be that long, but I was like, man.
got a lot to say.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I was actually thinking about rewriting some things because I heard something the other day about the beauty of handwriting
Mm,
and how things come out differently in handwriting.
they do.
Mm.
I can attest to that. Like they do come out a lot different when you write by hand. Because I used to do it all the time. I mean, like,
Well, I mean, like they said in what I was listening to, it's like that's the first draft.
mhm,
You know, it
yeah,
comes from your brain and your heart through your
yeah,
hand into the paper.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and
I was a big note writer and I journaled some, but mainly just to other people. But it really was more like journaling because I don't know how many like novels I would write to people and I would just like never give them to them, so just getting it out. But I can't write on paper. I mean, I can, but my handwriting is that mix of cursive and print, and then no
hmm
one can read.
yeah,
So when I was giving the girls their Taylor Swift tickets, well, not last Christmas, but the Christmas before, I had written out this really cute Taylor Swift coded note, and I'm like recording, like and they can't read half of it, and I'm like, dang it, I need you to get that code word, like, and they just are like, what did it say? What? And I'll ruin the whole video. But yes, I agree. Like handwriting would be
yeah.
great, but it's especially bad. Like with my handwriting, plus you combine that kids nowadays don't do it. They can't read cursive. Like they're not learning cursive anymore.
Mhm.
So it's like, well,
Do they even teach your kids how to sign their names?
no, I don't think so. I mean, I did. Like, we were, I don't know, we've been in some situations where the kids had to have a signature for some reason. Like, and so they're like, what is? And I'm like, just cursive, just
Like
Noah doesn't even try. Like he doesn't even try cursive.
Noah.
Yeah, he just writes Noah, and then that's it. And he's 14, but um, Layla will try. Hope she doesn't have a signature yet. She's 10, but she has impeccable handwriting. I mean, her handwriting is really good. So we just need to teach her cursive. And I did try. I bought books for like handwriting when I was homeschooling them, and
Man, I remember doing it in elementary school
yeah, like
with the little dotted lines
yeah,
across the two
yeah.
and the dotted lines that shows you where, yeah.
I probably should have stuck with it, but at the time I was like, well, it's fine. Like no one else is learning it, so we'll just. And they hated doing it, so I was like, fine, we'll just.
If I focused and I tried, I write in print though.
Mhm.
Like I write in all caps
Oh
in
yeah,
print.
yeah, yeah. You men seem to do that. I know a lot of you write in all caps. Is it small too?
It was at one point in my life when I
Yeah,
first started doing it because
yeah,
I had to teach myself how to do it. Uh, but not anymore.
yeah, yeah. All
Now sometimes I think it's ineligible.
caps.
People look at like your handwriting's so nice. I'm like, what?
Right?
What?
That
What do you see?
occasionally I'll get that too. Your handwriting's pretty, and I was like, no. Like, I know some girls who have the most beautiful handwriting. I've always been so jealous, but not enough to. Sometimes I can't read my own. I'm like, what did I write there?
Some girls just they have this flow,
I know it's
and it just
gorgeous.
I'm like, how do you do that?
I know. So anytime I get a compliment on my handwriting, I'm like, all right, maybe I don't know what your brain is seeing, but because I really will take notes, and I said I don't write that often. Like it's terrible, and I'll be like, what did I just write? Like, I have no idea what that says. So I don't know. Maybe I should get one of those books and practice.
I think if you practice, it would come back
Probably.
to you. It would just take within 6 months, you'd be in cursive like no
Yeah.
problem whatsoever.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Maybe.
Well, it's something you learned as a super young
Mhm.
person.
Yeah, it's like muscle
So
memory.
yeah, it's muscle memory.
Yeah.
It would come back to you pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, probably. I
Probably
might
didn't
do
even
that.
take 6 months. It'd probably take a month. And
Yeah. I think I might get some of those books. If I can find some that aren't like the big for little kids, I have to get
Mhm.
like the regular size print and then I could do it.
You could still get the little kids books and you could just write it out on a piece of paper,
Yeah, that's true.
just a regular piece of paper.
I do.
Because all you need to see is the shape and then
Yeah,
do it a couple times and that muscle memory come right back.
I bet.
Like riding a bike.
I think I do need to like do that tracing though to get my I don't know. Or I could just let it go. But no, I would like to write. I think that's one of my goals would be to start like journaling and writing
Did you
again.
ever pen pal as a kid?
I did not.
No.
No. Nope. I just bombarded my boyfriend with notes and he went to a different school. So
I love you.
I
I
did
love
so many. I mean, it was Chad actually, and I had forgotten, so I didn't know how I ended up with this. But when we divorced, he gave me the box of notes from middle school. I mean, from seventh grade. Like
He saved them
he saved
all.
them all, and so I still have them. Like, and because I don't know how to get rid of them, I'm like, it's crazy, like so they're with
That was your life.
yeah, it was. I
Have you
mean,
read them?
yeah, yeah, I have read some of them.
Are
Yeah.
they mushy? Like
Oh my
what?
gosh. Yeah, mushy and some
Complete
just
teenage
so
heartthrob.
much drama. We dated from like in seventh and eighth grade, and we broke up for 2 years till we were about 16.
Why'd you break up for 2 years?
Um,
Was there infidelity?
no, I don't think so. I can't
Trying to
remember.
get the mushy details.
Probably just because I was ready to marry him he's 12 years old, and
You wanted to marry
oh,
him already?
no, I'm telling you, my best friend named Cody, that I've known from elementary school, he moved out to Yukon, Oklahoma City, but he went to Yukon, and I went to visit him, and I met Chad, and I mean, like, it was one of those moments that you just remember forever. Like, I remember what he was wearing, I remember exactly what he looked like and where we
Love
were.
at first sight.
It was, and he was sorry, Chad, if you're listening, but he was such a little nerd. I mean, he had the bowl haircut and he had these big full ears, but I thought he was the cutest damn thing I've ever seen. And I just remember, I remember thinking like, I mean, it was love at first sight for me. And I said, like, I would tell him because we broke up a couple times back and forth off and on. And I remember saying to him, well, we're going to get married. I mean, I was 12 years old and I was like, wait, no, you can break up with me now. That's fine because I'm going to marry you. And so I don't know what happened.
I think I met Chad.
You may have. Yeah.
I think you said
Yeah.
I remember the ears.
Yeah.
Once you said that, it clicked in my head.
To them, that's not
Yeah.
something you would even recognize about him now. Like, it's crazy. Um, but yeah, so we weren't really, I think right around eighth grade, we had broken up and we stayed kind of friends, but then we just got back together and I was about 16. Yeah, that's all. The rest is history. He's still just such a great guy. Like we're friends, but
Yeah.
not, obviously not like
Yeah.
we were. Like he's probably the only like
I'm sure he has his life.
yeah, he's got his life and a wonderful wife now. They've been together for at least 10 years, I think.
Good.
And she was around since we were kids too. Like so they've known each other since high school and so yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. We try to stay friends but within like respectful like boundaries.
Yeah, you have to.
Because
You have to.
I am a big proponent of like protecting your relationship, and
Absolutely.
and so I don't think that there's anything wrong with being like, you know what, I'm going to keep like boundaries with people of the opposite sex and people that I've had relationships with
So
because
there you have to.
right when you get lax with that is when it gets
Yeah.
dangerous. So even if there's no feelings now and nothing, neither one of us are thinking about that now. So it's just respectful to like,
Well, that and like like you signed a marriage license,
mm-hmm,
like
mm-hmm,
you're in whether you want to be with leave that person first before you do anything.
right.
Like at least show them that level of
That
respect,
respect, right.
you know?
Mm-hmm,
Like be committed to the relationship that you're
mm-hmm.
in. If you're not, I mean, otherwise, you're just a piece of shit. Like
Yeah.
you're a selfish individual,
Mm-hmm.
you
I
know?
And I speak from experience because I was that selfish individual when I decided to when I thought that feelings meant everything,
Mhm.
then I cheated on my husband and it but I will say like there was never a part of me that thought like this is cool, like this is fine. Like this is what people do and it I mean, I don't want to say it tore me up more than it tore him up because I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Well, I can because I've been cheated on.
No,
But
that fucking sucks.
yeah, it does suck.
It blows.
It sucks, but it took me it affected me, like, the fact and that's why I say protect your relationship because the fact that it really did feel like it was something that happened to me, like, falling, like, I'll s for this other person, like, um, was just unexpected. It wasn't something that, like, I thought would ever happen, and so it felt like
Was that because you didn't have boundaries? Like you were talking?
100% no boundary. I mean, yeah,
I mean, obviously, at one point, 100% no boundaries because you cheated, obviously. But
you
before
know
that happened,
yeah,
that's what I mean.
well, yeah, so I was hanging out with another ex, and he was in my life for a reason. We and I had no clue, like, that I had any feelings for him still,
Hmm.
but and so I didn't think about having a few drinks around him because we were around each other all the time for various reasons, and I just had a few drinks, and he just made a move, and the second that he made the move, it, like, I had just feelings came up that I didn't realize were there.
Yeah,
And so,
it's called in the heat of the moment.
yeah, and so just the fact that those feelings existed, like, I mean, just tore me up. It just rocked my world because I was with this wonderful, like, nearly perfect individual and who loved me so much. So just, I mean, it threw me for a complete fucking loop. Like, how could I even be having feelings for somebody else? Like, and what does this mean? Like, what does it mean about my relationship? What does it mean as like about me as a person? Like, I mean, I was really hard on myself. So, I mean, I told him the truth and
Sometimes that's what you need to do, though.
yeah. I mean, it was rock bottom 110%. So, I mean, I told him the truth. So it was never one of those like, I'm just going to have this affair and keep it to myself and stay married. But, because yeah, I don't know how those people do it. I really
I
don't.
j- have. I don't understand how guys have what they call side bitches.
No.
I do not understand it.
Mm-mm.
Enough of my time is taken up with my wife. Like I
Right.
haven't. It's already hard enough to deal with
Yeah.
just her. Like
Right.
I could not imagine having one, two, or three, or however many.
Because they're not putting into the relationship what you are, So
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have
they're not
more to give.
100% there
And
for
so
sure.
I think that's what it is.
Well, I mean, I'm not even speaking emotionally in the relationship.
Mhm.
I'm just saying, just the time into having to live my life
Mhm.
with her. Like, she knows where I'm supposed to be.
I
Like,
imagine
how do you lie about those
I think what
things?
it is that because I've been in that type of relationship too, like to where the person is not where the relationship isn't like that. And so the woman in that instance would be always on edge and always she doesn't know what's going on with her man and she's never feels stable and secure,
Mhm.
because they just don't have that type of relationship, whether she wants it or not. If she wants it, she's always insecure and she's always
Yeah.
wondering. So yeah, I don't know how people do it.
It just seems super stressful.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you that I had taken a lot of like medicine for my MS, and I had gained a bunch of weight, and during I had kind of started to lose it, but during that time in my life, I mean, it came off like that, like, and so people at work are like, what's going on? What are you doing? Like, what are you taking to lose all this weight? And I just was telling him, I was like, oh, you want to lose weight? Cheat on your husband. This will happen. That's what fucking. I'm like, I'm going through a divorce, so that's why I'm skinny. And
Because you're honest.
I couldn't, but so I don't know how people do it. Like, if I had kept that a secret, like, gosh, I don't know if I would have survived it. I don't know how people. I think they're just like kind of heartless. Like they just don't. I can't imagine for me like hurting somebody that bad was just the worst thing, and like the worst thing that could have happened. Like like
That's why I can't do it, because I would know.
yeah,
Like, it doesn't matter if they find out. I know I
right.
cheated, and I'm gonna tear myself up from the inside.
Yeah, yeah, I will definitely. There's no way, no, no way I could ever like go through that again. And I mean, I learned so much from it, and um, I think it was. Well, I know it was the rock bottom of like my life, but and I hate it that like for me to become who I am now, that he kind of suffered that, he paid for that, and my kids
Mhm.
suffered it and everything.
Yeah.
So, um, but I just try to see it as if I can just do better, like in general, and
That's all you can do,
yeah,
which is all you can do.
and it
I mean,
affects.
unfortunately, you can't change the past.
And it affects, and to not let it just be about my relationships. It's not just that I'm going to be better in relationships. I just try to like take everything that I learned about myself and life, and because that took a lot of. I mean, when you're that shocked by your own actions, like you have to really become more self aware. Like, and so I think I just had to grow a lot as a person in general, like from that situation. So hopefully I'm better, more tolerable person than I was back then.
Yeah. Do you what was your realizing moment in that you had to change? Does that make
Yeah,
that's I know that's an open-ended question.
I think it was just I it wasn't one moment. I think I was trying to process, like I was trying to figure out why, like why it happened, like why I had these feelings for this other person. And um I mean there was just so much,
Why you let it kind of take
yeah, like
over?
how did. And I was also trying to process like what was lacking in that relationship, with which I didn't really even allow myself to think about at the time, because that would at the time would place a little bit of blame on my husband, and I didn't feel like that was fair at all. Like I just wanted to beat myself up as good as I could. But eventually like I was thinking like, well, something had to have been like that we weren't doing, which was like protecting our relationship, like putting boundaries with certain people and just acknowledging that. And also we weren't we were just really good partners. Like we were running our family was a business, and we were really good at like running that, but we didn't have a date night. We never put our relationship first. And plus we were both just really good people. We were both nice people with really good intentions. So how does anything go wrong? So I mean I was just working through a whole bunch of trying to figure out why it happened. And just through that, I don't know, I just kind of did change. And I mean, there's a lot of Bible reading and a lot of praying and
Samuels, thank you. Appreciate it. Windows are open. Let me close the blinds for you. Hey, good. Good dogs. Good dog. Uh-oh.
Mhm.
We just had neighbors move out.
Oh, move out?
Yeah. And they've been in and out this whole month.
Oh, nice.
I don't leaving stuff. I don't know.
I think that
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
oh, I think that as far as how to handle like relationships and realizing that had to change was just that I had just been approaching relationships wrong,
Mhm.
and that like our feelings like lied to us. And And so I'm forever telling people like I will learn the hard way. Like I feel like that God really did give us a handbook and we can like go back and forth about like how much the Bible's been changed and people adding to it and can we trust what's in it and whatever. I'm not going to tell anybody to
The
read it.
ultimate self-help book.
Right. And I'm not going to tell anybody read it front to back and take it word for word. I'm saying like develop a relationship with Jesus, with God. Here's this book. Something speaks to you. It's from Jesus. Like just let that be the thing. But what I've learned, I always learn the hard way, like I'll learn this lesson and then I'll be like, oh, well, it says in the Bible to avoid this. And if I had avoided this, then this wouldn't have happened. And so that's why he wrote it. Like that's why it's in there. And I mean, that's been probably since that time. I mean, since that rock bottom is when I did just like delve back into it,
Hmm.
and so I wouldn't say it was like one defining moment. It was just a lot of moments.
Culmination.
Yeah, of prayer and thinking and reading and it took a lot of time to myself too. I mean, I stayed single for a long time, for 2.5 years, just with no interest in any of it. So
Are you in a relationship now?
yes, with um we were friends for a long time, and then when he got in a relationship and I got with Steven and we kind of lost touch for like 6 or 7 years. I mean, we were friends on Facebook, but um, it was probably 6 or 7 months into my separation with Steven that I was like, I just wonder what Ryan's doing. So I just like text him and his phone number hasn't changed in 25 years or something. And just like, hey, like, can we be friends again? And he was like, yeah. And he was leaving the Thunder game, I think, or something. And he just said, I'll meet you there in 20 minutes. And it was just like kind of like we picked up where we
Right,
left
we
off.
left
Like
off.
he didn't even have to tell me where he was going. Like I knew what
Hmm.
bar he would be at. And so we were friends for a couple more years, just friends, and then just kind of happened. So we moved in together a year ago.
Good.
Yeah, you did meet him at Outback.
This guy you're in a relationship
Mhm.
with?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we were just friends back then though,
Oh,
when you met him. Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
There's a few times I'd seen you having dinner. I'd
Yeah.
stop over and talk to you.
Yeah.
I remember one specific night you were eating. I don't know who you were eating with, but y'all were on the side of the restaurant where there just happened to be nobody.
Mhm.
I think we had closed that side of the restaurant and y'all were like the last table in that
Mhm.
area. And I just came over and I sat down
Who?
with you guys and
I don't know who I was with either. I love Outback.
I don't so much anymore.
No?
I haven't been there in quite a while. I feel like their food has gone downhill.
Okay, let me tell you. Like their salads are a lot smaller, and they have this new way of cooking steaks.
Yeah, it's the double press.
Hate it.
Yeah, that's what I don't like. I went and I had a burger and it was the nastiest burger I ever had. It was
I would say
gross.
the GM over there, if that's what they call him, is fantastic.
Cory,
Maybe,
the one
but
on Expressway.
yeah,
Yeah, Cory.
he's so good.
Yeah, no, he's an awesome dude.
So I was just like, I don't want to complain. I'm like, listen, a bad steak at Outback is like better than a good steak anywhere else, in my opinion. Like I like it better than Longhorn. Like I just love Outback steak. But even just their Cheevel sirloins, I love it. But um, I'm like, I don't want to like complain. I'm like, but this is just really like not cooked
Mhm.
right. I can't remember if it was overdone or underdone or whatever. But he's just always so. That's what it was. It was underdone. So then they took it back, and it's like since it's in those like egg
Double.
things,
Yeah.
then it came back just like beef jerky. And I'm like,
Oh no.
dude, like, why is it so hard to get a medium steak? Like that shouldn't be hard. So then he comps it, and he's just so nice. Like
Nah, Cory's great.
he's a really good guy. I like him.
Yeah. Whenever they switched to that, I was completely disappointed. But they have Outback. I watched them over the years slowly downgrade.
Mhm.
That's just how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't care if you disagree with it. I
Yeah.
don't give a shit. I love their wings. I think they have the best wings.
Mm.
Next
I haven't
time,
had their wings in a
next
long
time you go get their wings, just don't get any sauce on them. It's just fried chicken.
time.
Oh man, the seasoning in the
The
way
breading.
they bread it because I think they use the bloom
Mhm.
powder to put on their wings, so
Yum.
it's got a little bit of kick to it. Oh, they're
Dude,
so good.
have you had the bloomin' shrimp?
No, but I bet you that'd be good.
It is so good. It is so good. I love Outback. I'm gonna have to go this week. It's one of my favorite restaurants.
It used to be one of my favorite.
I mean, so my sister worked there when she was like 16, and then I mean, it just I feel like that like I don't know. It almost just feels kind of like home. Like there's so many of you guys that
I worked for Outback for a long time.
yeah, and I
A
mean
lot of us
Sean
did.
and Joe
Okay, yeah.
and I mean Casey was
Jack.
there for a while. Jack, how can I forget about Jack? He was like
Jack.
a staple.
Yes.
Oh,
Uh, honestly, I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
And he's
I
on.
just recently started my Facebook back up.
I
I
wondered.
just recently started
I
that back
wondered.
up.
Yeah. I
I
had to
just
see.
did it to promote podcast.
Yeah.
Well, I had Instagram.
Mhm.
I was using Instagram, and I was like, well, Instagram is Facebook now. So I
Mhm.
was like, I might as well just have it on there, have
Yeah.
them both.
Yeah.
So
I was surprised when I saw your name come up on my feed or whatever.
yeah, that was probably literally the day I started
Probably,
that.
yeah. Well, I'm friends with Rachel, and she would like. I thought you didn't have a Facebook because she would talk about you or say your name, but it wouldn't like tag
Mhm.
you, you know. So I was like, well, I guess he's not on Facebook anymore.
Well, I had deactivated it years ago, years and years ago.
Yeah.
Got rid of it. It was one of the best things I did at that point in time.
Yeah. I'm just not big on Twitter and Insta and all of that mess, and so Facebook is the only social media that I really have. And I mean, it's cool because things like this happen, and
Mhm.
like I'll run into people from like high school or people I haven't talked to in a while, and that's cool. But it
Yeah.
is a time suck. I mean,
Yeah. Thank you very much for doing this, by the way.
of course.
I had a cancellation.
Oh yeah.
Well, they had something come up that it just conflicted with schedule, so I was like, I'll see if anybody wants to.
Yeah, just it's an excuse to get to
Yeah.
catch up with you. It's
Well, I
awesome.
mean, that's all this is, just a conversation, catching up with friends.
I love it.
Really.
And I mean, I kind of feel like an idiot with you being so close. I'm like, I am a stone's throw away from your house like multiple times a week, but I would like I used to just sit down with draws and have a conversation. It's
Yeah.
like awesome opportunity. So
And
anytime you have a
and
cancellation,
I mean, hopefully it can help people.
yeah,
So
I hope so.
I mean, that's the whole goal. It doesn't matter how many people listen to it. It's just one person. All it
Yeah.
takes is one person being in a similar situation. Maybe
Mhm.
maybe they're thinking about cheating on their husband, and they heard you talk about cheating on it and how stressful it is,
Yeah.
and then that
Yeah.
that's what it's about.
I think so too. I mean, I think that's probably why I've been kind of like an open book is because part of it is like letting go of some of like the guilt. You know what I mean? Like just being like, okay, I'm not I'm not gonna like just stay in that place of like shame
Hmm.
and all that for
You
forever.
can't.
No, you can't. I mean, I tried. I gave it my best go.
Oh, trust me, I stuck with some depression for many years.
But you gotta let it go. And also, like, it's just not who I think maybe even not just staying there, but not letting that like one moment like define who
Hmm.
you are. And it's so easy to, you know,
It's very easy.
especially when I think about how it affected my kids and affected just so many people um for a lifetime that like so it's really easy to like stay there, but there's a lot more there's a lot more to me than that one piece. And I thanks to Facebook, it was a Facebook reel. I saw this clip of an interview with Dolly Parton, and she said, "It's not that I don't care what people think about me. I do care what people think about me, but I don't care what you think about me if you don't care enough to really get to know me and like really understand."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is so it, you know. So strangers can judge and think all they want, but people are more than just like a list of like their actions and things that happen. There's always just layers underneath that one action, you know. And so for the people who care enough to get to know the layers and they want to know, awesome. And if they don't, then well,
I feel like our society's gotten way too judgmental.
yeah.
But it's so easy to judge people and not have any repercussions of it though
Oh yeah.
nowadays with
Judge them
like
and
I
attack
can
them.
I cannot imagine being one of your kids, one of your teenage
No.
children. I cannot imagine,
Mm-mm.
especially if they're online regular basis like most kids are. Like I cannot imagine.
So they're pretty good about listening to me so far. That they limit their profiles are accessible only to people they're friends with, and whether that's Snapchat or I don't even know, or Instagram or Facebook, like my girls will be on those things to like make stupid videos and like post them and like just talk with their friends and stuff. But um they don't try to be like influencers or promote themselves, or which I mean sounds crazy to say, but people do. Like these kids, other kids
Oh
will,
no, that's
like and
they poll children now and ask them what they want to be when they grow up, and a lot of them say influencers,
insane. It's nuts.
as opposed to the astronaut, the doctor, the
Right.
lawyer, the like when we
Right.
were kids.
Yeah.
That there's so many of them that make a very very good living making and posting ridiculous
So
things.
TikTok has this thing right now that if somebody clicks your link, you get $2 or $10 or something. And so people are just like posting their links, just like so everybody will like follow each other to get $10. And it's just like it's nuts to me. And it's hard. I think especially I know that males have their own like pressures from society, but for girls especially, I mean, there's all these filters and like it's worse than the magazines when I was younger,
It is
like
terrible.
because you really can't tell like what's real and what's not real and what's a filter and what's not a filter. And like we adults, we have a hard time. What do they call like Facebook is like the highlight reels, like you're just seeing people on their good day because that's what they choose to post. That's hard enough on us grown ups, but you put that on a 14-year-old, and I'm like, I want to be like, honey, do you know how many pictures she probably had to take to get that one perfect looking carefree picture before she posted it? And it can be airbrush, it could be AI, it could be so many things, but these girls, like, they don't know that it's a lot of pressure on them. But they're pretty good about. They just watch celebrity bullshit and make stupid dance videos and post it for their friends to see.
It's for fun,
Yeah,
which is what it's meant to be. It's meant
yeah.
to be fun and entertainment.
And right now they're good about it. And I hope that I hope that I give them enough of a leash that they won't go like crazy in any of these aspects whenever they get older. But and it's wild though raising teenagers because
I closed the blinds.
you can hear.
Sam, that's enough. They heard the wind blow.
Right. The level of like how self-conscious they become just overnight is insane to me. Like, so and it's hard for me like to know when to like try to correct that and to like try to pull her back down to reality, and be like, hey, like, is this like, do we need to have a lot of conversations about this? That like, you don't need to be awkward in this situation. Not everybody's looking at you like, and as a mom, like being afraid that this is just gonna like stick with her personality for the rest of her life. And then I'm like reminding myself, I'm like, okay, no, this is just her being 14. This is just her figuring stuff out. And so talking to other moms kind of like helps me because I'm like, does your daughter hate you too? You're 14. Does she hate you? Is everything awkward now? Like to her awkward? Like one day it was in the same scenario that same situation we were going to go to like a outing of some sort. She complained that she wasn't going to know anybody there. Maybe it was like back to back. Like one day she was mad that she wasn't going to know anybody where we were going. And then the next day she was going to know everybody where we were going. And both situations were just the worst. And I'm like, I don't know what do you want? Like she just wants like two people in the world that she likes. And that's all she wants. Like, so I just have to remind myself, I'm like, okay.
Is that how you were when you were 14?
No. Oh no. I have always been a social butterfly. I've always been.
Yeah, you're very silly.
Yeah, like heart on my sleeve, like
Were you just talking about Layla?
yeah, just Layla.
I think I've met a couple of your kids. I remember Layla and y'all eating at Outback. Y'all were having
Yes.
like a girls' night.
Yes.
I remember
Yeah.
that. And you were with a friend
Yeah.
who also had a daughter,
Yes.
and y'all were all dressed up to,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't remember why we were doing that.
I think y'all were going to see a show or something.
Maybe.
I want to say
That's
maybe a Christmas show or something.
maybe it sounds so familiar because I remember too. It was with Brianna and her daughter.
But
And
I remember Layla being super
yeah.
outgoing and be like, "Hi, who are you?"
Yeah.
Like,
she's so bubbly and
who are you? How do you know my mom?
right.
You know?
And what's funny is like not funny. It's terrible because it's the way of the world. But like when she started being a little bit more reserved and stuff, like your mom's brain always goes like, what happened to her? Something happened, caused trauma, caused her to like recoil. No, it's just she became more self-conscious, just more like afraid everybody's judging her and everybody's looking at her and like, but I will tell them, the twins especially, I'm like, it's hard. Being a teenager is the fucking worst. It's the worst. It's
It
so
does
hard.
suck.
Like it just
Blows.
sucks. And I can't imagine this day and age. And I'm like, I don't miss high school. I don't miss middle school. I thought it all sucked. Like, and if I look back at 40 years old and look back and think, man, those were the worst years. I mean, in ways, they were the best years because the time that we lived in, like the 90s and early 2000s was way cooler than now. But and it was cool not having responsibilities and stuff. But as far as like interacting with those other little assholes, like it was the worst. Like,
No, I had people who picked on me, but I also picked on those people.
oh, I'm
There's a
sure
lot
that I
of the
was.
time, like
I'm sure that there were times where I
I
was.
did stupid stuff. I was a teenager. Like I made bad decisions.
Yeah, we
I
all.
mean, I lost my virginity in the high school boys' bathroom.
Yep. See,
Like that's not a great
do you
decision.
know how many men I know that lost their virginity when they were like 13, 14 years old? And it just terrifies me. I'm just like,
I wasn't. I was 17.
okay, well, that's good.
I was a little bit older.
That's good. That makes me feel a little better.
It wasn't by choice. I probably totally would have done it earlier.
Yeah.
Had the opportunity presented itself.
Boys' bathroom, though. That's funny. Man, you forget what those hormones are like.
I mean, shit. I don't. I don't. Me and a girlfriend when we were 16 was Kim Pitt.
Mm-hmm.
We dry humped in my bedroom so hard that my brother came in and goes, "Hey, I can hear you."
Just over the clothes.
That was just over the clothes.
Man, it was like you kill. I mean, the it's like no matter you didn't care if you were gonna get in trouble. Like it was like uncontrollable. Like you needed to like do it right. I mean, I remember that like such.
It was an uncontrollable urge. Like it was. I just.
Yeah,
Ugh.
you just have to. Like you just have to.
Pretty sure there were a couple times I'm. No, we're not gonna get into that. We're not gonna get in that. A little early. I'm just saying. I mean, teenage boy, I don't. You can't control that. When it's coming, it's coming.
Yeah. And and I for my son, like he's so respectful and he's only had a girl over once and they hung out in the upstairs like living room and he would get kind of offended, like, Mom, like, why would you think like don't worry about me? Like I'm not gonna do anything. And he's genuine, like and I'm like, well, it just hasn't kicked in yet. And like you don't understand how overpowering
Hormones.
these hormones are.
That's yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, just like I just try to tell him, like, Bud, like it's not that I don't trust you; it's that it's normal that
Mhm.
you are going to feel this way, and you're not going to care if somebody walks in on you. In the moment, you're not going to care if I walk in. Like,
It's a primal urge.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's an urge to spread your seed,
mhm,
especially for men. Like it's sometimes an uncontrollable urge. Like
yeah,
I understand why some instances of cheating happen.
hmm
Just because that primal urge for a man to spread his seed,
hmm
and there's this woman, whoever she may be, that's like, oh my god, this woman wants me.
So you should read. Um, is it like something simple like the female brain? And I'm telling you, that book is so fucking interesting. And it talks about like that. It talks about like what men like look for and what women look for back to like from the primal, like from cavemen, like what we're like drawn to. And it wasn't like even one part of it, I remember thinking it wasn't even like slut shaming, but it was saying that like women who like sleep with men on the first date, which I've been guilty of, but women who sleep with men on the first date, how even like the subconscious, like in their brain, the man's brain, it like lowers her value, like not consciously, you know what I mean? But like on
No, it's a sudden. No, I completely
like a
yeah,
subconscious,
I understand.
and just also about like the way that a person smells and like what kind of job the man has, like that a woman is drawn to her, not because she's like greedy, but because even if she wants to be this independent woman who can take care of herself and I don't need no stinking man to provide for me on some level, she does. So
Oh,
a man that is like stable in his job is more, she's literally more physically attracted and couldn't tell you why. And if you asked her, she wouldn't say, well, he makes $200,000 a year. That's why. That wouldn't be in her brain.
yeah.
But it's just that it's like the stability. It's that
Well,
like,
there was a men's something. I don't even think it was in a magazine. I think it was just an article I was reading somewhere. But it was talking about how like if you buy sunglasses, buy nice sunglasses
mm,
because women see that and they're like, oh, it's a subconscious thing. Like, oh, he likes and he takes care of nice
mm,
things. Like, trim your beard, be well kept,
right.
like cut your hair,
Yeah.
shave,
Yeah.
like look good, look presentable when you wear clothes. Make sure they're straight and ironed. Like you don't have to have Gucci on.
Right.
Just make sure it looks
Yeah,
good.
look presentable.
Yeah.
And it is because, and it's not that we can't get past these primal things. It's not that we can't see past them. But if we're talking just like on this like knee jerk reaction to things, like this, just our natural response to
Hmm.
people. Yeah, like what attracts us. So,
Yeah.
but if you like to read, it's a really
The
easy,
female
the
brain.
female brain. Yeah, it's so interesting. And it talks um from like when you're infants to all the way through like menopause, which I think I stopped around. I'm around the perimenopause, which I'm in right now. But it, so I need to pick it back up.
So it's a female based book,
It's
but
written
it
by a
talks
female.
about the
Yeah,
men's perspective.
yeah. So it basically talks about the primary focus is like on how the woman's brain works, and but throughout it, it will be like the male brain tends to work this way, but like in contrast to how the female brain works from, it goes into like so many different like aspects just about how like you can see these like scientific, anatomical, whatever physical differences, like how they manifest even in infancy,
Yeah.
um and how they react to certain situations. And like it was, I mean, I had my highlighter out and I would be like, I asked for this book, so Ryan bought it for me for Christmas or something, and so I'd be sitting there reading and I would be like, Ryan, look at this, this explains this, like it's a fantastic book. Rachel might like it. You guys should read it together. You would learn a lot.
I'll read it to her.
Yeah.
Like I'm understanding your brain. I'm gonna figure our marriage
Seriously.
out.
Seriously.
I got this.
Though, and I'm like such a feminist, like feminist. So like I don't like to like, what's the word where you just like group everybody together, stereotype. Like I'm not all about like that. And obviously we're individuals and blah blah blah. But this was an enlightening read.
Yeah, but we may be individuals, but ultimately we're mammals.
Right.
Like, and our goal is to be born, give birth,
Hmm.
and then die
Yeah.
and pass on our knowledge and our genes. Like
Yeah.
that is the basic goal.
Yeah. It's that, yeah, it's a drive. It's an instinct
Like
for
it's
sure.
the human goal. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
Like you can't fight that. It's a part of your being.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree. I agree.
just like you didn't get choose to be born. This is how it fucking works.
Right. Right.
Like this is the only way to propagate the species. Like
Mhm. Speaking of, did you and Rachel ever want to have kids?
we can't.
Mhm.
Um
Mhm.
just because of everything that happened to her, the stress of a pregnancy on her body
Would be
would
too
be
much.
bad for her.
Yeah.
The medicine that she now has to take for the rest of her life would be bad for the fetus.
Mhm.
So it's not, we can't.
Yeah.
Um,
Has that been hard?
Not really because we watch how fucked up the world is right now and things that, like I said, like your kids have to go
Yeah.
through.
I
The,
pray they don't have kids.
but just the ridiculousness
Mhm.
of just take social media for example. I mean, that on top of like it is very much a tedious task for a parent
Mhm.
to police that
Oh gosh. Yeah.
because it is so overwhelming for a
Mhm.
child and it's almost there's many other reasons why I say this, but it's almost impossible to raise a well-mannered human being in
Yeah.
today's society.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
There's other things that factor into that, not just social media, but
Right. Yeah. It's really hard. And now like I'm really thankful that like mental health care is so like acknowledged these days, that like it's taken seriously and it's not taboo. So my kids are fine with using words like anxiety and depression and intrusive thoughts.
Do you ever find that it's overused though? Because there is, I I think it's great to talk about those things, but I also think can be bad because it can be overused.
It reminds me of a comedian who said that he said something about the generation and how they were like they don't want to do anything about their anxiety or whatever. Anyway, he said, I have anxiety. And they're like, oh, what are you doing about that? And he's like, well, nothing. He's like, I want you guys to work around it. Like,
Yeah.
that's on point for this
Yeah.
generation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it can be overused. My kids are, especially the twins, are very independent in nature. They're kind of prideful. And so, and like being like strong, whatever, however they perceive that to be is really important to both of them. And so they definitely don't, whether it's used too much in society or whatever, they don't use it as like a crutch. They're not just like, well, I'm just too like anxious or I don't feel this way. Like they don't, but they're good about saying when they're feeling it,
Mhm.
and addressing it. And so I'm thankful for that like it's not because when we were young, like it was really taboo to like you say anxiety, people didn't have really a clue like
What you're talking about.
what that meant. And it seemed like as a weakness instead of as like a way that your brain works. But yeah, I mean, so I'm thankful for that, but it is hard raising three of them because they all respond to things differently and they have different fears and different vices and like
Mhm.
it's so
Well, they're individuals.
yeah, so it's just so it's daunting. And when they're little, you worry about all the physical things that can happen to them. You worry about like illnesses and getting hit by a car and somebody snatching them up. But the older that I've gotten and that they've gotten, you really worry more about protecting them like mentally and emotionally and then turning out to be, like you said, just like well adjusted, happy, and like that's the goal. Like the
Mhm.
keeping them protected from the physical stuff is keeping them healthy for me, thank God, has been way easier than worrying about the rest of it,
Yeah.
especially teenagers because they are changing so much and they're figuring out who they are. So you want to like step in and be like, hey, like that little part of your personality that came out, like we need to work on that. But you don't want to be too hard on them because they are working on it.
Well, that's what like I feel like the mentality is not maturing fast enough
Mhm.
as like um their bodies and their hormones and
Yeah.
everything is maturing way faster than their minds are.
Yeah.
They're kind of they're not
And see,
the mind's not catching up with the
I
body.
have such a narrow perspective on this because I'm so focused on mine. But Ryan works, he owns a restaurant. And so he works with kids, older teenagers and young adults. And I hear that a lot from him, that they're just not as mature as we were when we were their age. And I don't see that so much because mine are very like as emotionally like mature as I feel like a 14-year-old can like get, but they're wildly different people. But um mine are pretty, I mean, they're pretty awesome. Like they're still figuring things out and
You're a
stuff.
little bit biased though.
I am, but I do get a lot of like positive feedback, like from and
That's
that
good. That's great though.
yeah,
I would much rather. There's so many times waiting tables you see shitty fucking kids.
yeah.
Like there were times where people would sit down and their kid would not look up from their iPad the entire time they were
See,
at the
now that's
table.
hope. And sometimes Layla, and really, and Noah, of course, he's surrounded by females. And I mean Ryan's there too, but and then he goes to his dad and stuff, but he's very much in his he wants to be in his own like world. Like he wants to be kind of
Yeah, but do you order for your kids?
no. They've ordered for
They still talk to the I'm
yes.
talking about like from they have head these kids would have headphones on in their thing and not have any interaction with the outside world at all.
And
Like,
Noah is borderline that, but he will order for himself and say please and thank you. And he's
well, as a parent, you got to teach your kid to interact, how
Mhm.
to interact with
Yeah,
the outside world because they're going to have to at some point
right.
in time.
And I really have struggled with that with him because I felt bad for him that he did. His sisters are wonderful, but they're girls and they're chattier. They like the same things that I like, and it was just easier for us to find things we wanted to do together and do this. And at some point, for a long time, Noah was that way too. Do you want to go see this movie? Do you want to go to the park? Do you want to do this? And everything was fine. And at some point, like he started having such different interests.
Hormones,
Yeah, and then it was harder.
testosterone.
Yeah, and it was harder for me to so I thought, well, I don't want to force if he wants to be in his room talking to his friends and playing his games, like I personally don't see anything negative about that. So I would let him. But I've told him, I'm like, Bud, like I feel like that the more we let you like isolate, for lack of a better word, when he needs something, if he needs to talk about something, this boy will wake me up in the middle of the night to have a conversation with me. Like he knows that that's like available.
I
Like
would do that with my mom.
he if he has a problem, he texts me, he calls me, he values my opinion, he and not just mine, but I'm saying he knows I'm accessible to him.
Hmm.
But
Here is mama.
yeah, so if he so there's that exists, but I told him I'm like in this attempt to like let you have your space, I'm afraid like your subconscious is thinking that this family just functions just fine without you, because we don't do the like sit down at the table and have a meal. We've just never been that type of family. And I said, but this family doesn't function without you. Like your sisters just take up a lot of the air in the room. And that's
That's one
okay.
good way to
I
put it.
mean, they just do. I'm like, but if you need me, you gotta get me, like get my attention. And so it is hard with him though. So like when we go out to dinner, the few times that I'm like, come on, bud, will you please come to dinner? He will if it's a special occasion. Well, I know.
Okay, mom.
Yeah, okay. And he and his twin sister butt heads like crazy. And I mean,
Are they identical?
they're fraternal and
Girl.
they butt heads. And so he will get in this moment where he's like, it's not to get away from me and it's not to get away from Ryan or Stephen. Hope's dad is with us a lot, like for special occasions. It's not to get away from anybody else, but it is to get away from his sister. He'll just put on this head like he does get overstimulated easy, and he's just like, I know it's like this self-preservation, keep myself out of trouble. Like I'm gonna end up getting into it with her if I don't put my headphones on.
Hmm.
But then we also have the thing where lately where he just wants to be home all the time. I mean, he doesn't want to be
How old is he?
14 and he
Okay.
just wants to be home or his girlfriend's, but she lives in Guthrie, so he can't get there without me.
How long is he? Is it a real girlfriend?
I mean, everything's real to him.
Well, obviously he's
Yes,
14 years
but
old.
yes,
Yes.
and he is
But I mean, from a grown adult perspective of relationships and life.
they are new. They met in when he was working at the haunted house, and so she came through, but also she came through because she was friends with another kid that worked there, and so Connor was his name, like arranged this cyber
Mhm.
meeting between Noah and I won't say her name, I guess, but so he kind of just like felt her out, felt it. He didn't like jump in feet first, and because he's kind of particular. Um, but yeah, I mean, they seem to really like each other. They like
I'm
talk.
sure a lot of teenage relationships start online a lot more nowadays
Yeah, yeah.
than
It's just easier, I guess. But he's gone out there twice. We've taken him out there a couple of times to like just hang out with her and watch movies. And so, um, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not casual in either one of their minds, I
Mhm.
guess. But, um, and I can't, like I said, I met Chad when I was 12 and decided I was going to marry him. So
Touche.
I can't tell him that this is not a real relationship. So
Touche.
it is very real. And he'll say things like, Mom, I know it's not important to you, but I want her to be a long-standing person in my life. So can you please arrange this for me to get out here? And I mean, but he doesn't do anything like halfway, except maybe school. So yeah, it's very real for Noah. He's Layla's the opposite as far as relationships, which is mind blowing to me that my son is the one that is like all heart and in 110%. And Layla's like, even her first boyfriend, she said, I'm not going to marry him. She's like, it's going to end, and she's just,
So they're the twins,
mhm. Yeah.
Layla and
Noah.
Noah.
Mhm.
Okay, and then Hope is your oldest.
No, she's 10.
She's the youngest. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
So the twins are older. Okay.
Yeah. 14 and a half, and then just turned 10. Hope. And now she might be the one that's going to mature a little bit less, and I don't know, or less quickly. I don't know if that is a
Uh,
generational thing.
I don't know. Sounds like she's pretty mature already, thinking how
Hope.
we're late. Hope. Oh, Hope.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going back to Layla. I'm
No.
sorry.
Now, Hope, the youngest one, she is the like epitome of the baby of the family. I mean, and I love it. I've said forever, I'm like, she takes her time growing up. She's just, and she's
Yeah.
just, and she loves being a kid. She's just a kid all the time, just like happy go lucky. She's sunshine. She's silly. Like, she is not in a rush to grow up in any way, shape, or form. And I don't know if that's because she's the baby of the family or if it's her generation. I don't know, but she's, yeah, if anybody takes a while to mature, I think it'll be her. The
Yeah.
twins think that they are very mature.
Well, they're early teenage years, so
Yeah.
I mean, uh, Cohen, my nephew, man, he just turned 15. Kid thinks he's got it figured out.
Now, is this your brother's son?
No, that's Gage.
Mm-hmm.
That's Gage.
He's got to be in his 20s.
Oh, he's already got tattoos.
Oh my God.
He's got tattoos. He's 18.
Okay.
He just turned 18.
Okay.
He graduated high school this past May and turned 18. Got tattoos. He's already got 2.
Of course.
He's already got 2.
I'm surprised it took him this long.
Right, true. I could totally see his dad signing off on one before. I could totally see that happening. But no, Cohen is Rachel's sister's son.
Okay.
Who would have been a big part of his life too.
Yeah.
And man, he's starting himself a little small engine repair business. I know.
How cool.
15.
That's awesome.
Like, bro, who are you?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like, you're supposed to be 15, man. Just Chasey's got a girlfriend. We got to take him to his first dance. Oh, it was so cute.
It's cute.
Yeah.
No one has no interest in that.
So, real quick, I didn't tell my wife this, but I pulled Cohen. So, I always give girls flowers when I take them out on dates.
I remember.
So I always give flowers. So when we went to pick them up to take them to there was their Christmas dance or something like that, some formalish dance. So he got the little boutonniere for the girl. Boutonniere? No, boutonniere is the guy. Corsage.
Yes.
Corsage for the girl and a boutonniere for himself. And I was like, dude, did you get like flowers to like give to her? It's like, no, man, gotta have flowers.
Yeah.
I was like, we gotta get a vase, some flowers. So I took them to get it. And while we were taking them, I was like, all right, I waited till we were alone to tell you this. I was like, now when you're escorting a lady, I was like, I don't care what no one disrespects that lady in your presence, dude. I was like, I will back you up if you get into a fight, but don't let anybody disrespect the girl that you're escorting. Like, I did do a little like, hey man, like, you get her flowers, you treat her like a princess, you open her doors. Like, don't fuck this up. It does.
It does matter. And it's funny because you picked me up from my mom's house, and I didn't.
I remember that. It was when y'all were living off 23rd Street. Yeah.
And so I didn't have a whole lot of like actual dates with people. I mean, I think you were like well, Steven took me on a date. So maybe like one of 3 people that I actually went on a like formal date with, because it's a lot of meet this friend and you get in a relationship after because you have mutual friends, how it was back then.
Yeah.
So you were
dating your inner circle. Yeah. Kind of thing. Yeah.
But you were one of 3 who actually picked me up for an actual date. And I won't forget my mom standing on the toilet looking out the window. And she was like,
was she really?
She was like, he has flowers. It's so funny. So it matters. The
That's
flowers,
cute.
yeah, they make a difference. That's so funny. That's good. So maybe now he'll always remember to bring flowers.
I guarantee you. Yeah. Like, I mean, if this relationship works out, it'll be because of the fucking
Of
flowers.
course it will be. Yeah.
Like if he ends up marrying this girl, it's because I made him bring flowers.
Right. You should have to give a speech at the wedding, or he'll thank you at the wedding.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Noah is incredibly like respectful, and he's very respectful of their dads. Like, like he's just like, it's important that uh their dads trust me, and it's important that their dads know you, and well, parents in this situation.
Absolutely.
He's a single dad, so but he had a girlfriend before too, and Noah just arranged it to where we met at, she lived in Crescent, and
Where did he get that from?
I don't know. I mean, I
Like,
don't.
is his father big in his life?
I mean, he sees him. Yeah, he sees him like he stays one night a week over there, and he also stays one night a week with Steven, because Steven came around when the twins were 18 months old. So
But he has some positive male role
yeah,
models in his life.
yeah, but I mean, neither one of them are like dating. You know what I'm saying? Like Steven's not out there
Well,
dating.
you don't have to be out dating to give your
Yeah,
son advice about
he's so.
being a good young man.
I feel like he talks to them even less than he talks to me, because they try to like tread lightly with him, like as far as like making him come out of his room and do stuff. And they only get one night with him, so they just, I feel like, try to like do whatever Noah wants to do, let him do whatever he wants to do. Um, Not that they haven't had those conversations, and I know for a fact when he does have a conversation with him, he takes it to heart. But I don't know really. I don't know where he gets it. Maybe so. Maybe he did have some conversation with him about how to treat.
I would hope so.
I mean, I would
I
hope
would
so.
hope so.
Um, yeah. I mean, he also, Noah is like an observant person, so he has looked at every parental figure in his life and decided like what he wants to emulate and what he doesn't. Like I've heard a lot of, well, I'm not going to be like this.
I think that could be a good thing in split households.
Yeah.
Like a positive aspect of growing up in a split household is like I had two moms and two dads growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So like you have four
Yeah.
examples to choose from. Like
Right.
if you can pick and choose, like I like that, like
Right.
I don't like that.
His dad has 3 women that he has children with, and he is with one of them and has been with her for years now.
He sounds like a whore. Just saying.
So Noah would say, I don't, I would talk to him just like very like light, casual, throw it in, like just whenever you do, you need to use condoms, you need to, and he would, but I would also, the whole thing, like, I think you should wait a long time before you sleep with anybody. And there's a million reasons why, but I'm just saying, like, don't get anybody pregnant. And he would say, I'm not going to be like dad. But he would say that since when he was like 9, 10 years old, before he even knew what made babies, he would say, I don't want to be like dad. I'm not. He would make these jokes at this prepubescent age and be like, he doesn't know what causes it. Dad can't figure out where babies come from. Like he needs to, like, so he just, from a very young age, he knew that he did not want that to be his journey at all. So, I was really thankful for that. I mean, not that he's like judging his dad or anything, but just I was thankful that that's what he took from it. That it wasn't like this is just normal. Like he didn't think that was normal, and he didn't want that life. So
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, he's this really smart, introspective
stuff
kid.
Up.
Yeah.
Even at young ages. Like,
yeah.
I remember I didn't realize it until years later, but I remember when I was a kid, my uncle. So on summers we would spend with our father. Me and my older brother, we would spend with our father, and we would always go over to our Uncle Dan's and Aunt Diane's house.
Mm-hmm.
And Uncle Dan was a huge Buffalo Bills football fan, and there was one year I don't remember exactly. They were in the Super Bowl and they lost. I think that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But he was so angry about it that he punched holes in the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think I remember seeing the holes and asking why they were there. And the story was told to me, oh, the Bills lost, blah, blah, blah. But I haven't
Which
cared
is
about football
oh,
since then. Like,
yeah.
it's what it was because of booze and alcohol.
Mhm.
That he was drunk and he just punched
Yeah.
holes in the wall. He was mad, whatever. But I really haven't cared about football. Like I was like, football's dumb to care about. You punch holes in the wall.
Right.
Like in my little brain, I
Yeah.
somehow worked that out.
I
And to this day, I really don't give a shit about
yeah.
football.
I felt that way about pot for the longest time because I had this cousin that I was his name was Josh, and he was like 5 years younger than me. And so it was my dad's brother's son. Well, his mom was named Mary, and she was best friends with my mom. And so we were just really close. Well, she had, they all smoked weed, not my parents, but um, my uncle and Mary, they smoked together and stuff. When she got pregnant, and it was illegal back then,
Mhm.
um, she stopped and she was, straight laced and
'Cause she
they,
was pregnant.
right. And
Yeah.
then even after he was born, she didn't want around her son. Um, and I mean, they were like in love, but she said, like, you have to stop or you can't be around. And he literally just chose. It wasn't that he didn't love Mary. There was no other women involved. It was literally pot over his son. And
Wow.
I mean, it was nuts. And so I remember like he would come around every once in a while and she would let him and they were around all the time or we were over there and I just remember Josh waiting for his dad and his dad not showing up. And I mean, I was like 7 or 8 or 9 and I just remember this little kid just sobbing and just crying for his dad and like in my brain it was pot was the reason why. And
Yeah.
so like I had just this very like I didn't respect it at all, which was ironic because the twins' dad was a pothead and just like but his life revolved back then, his life revolved around it too. Like so I had a really negative um like relationship with that.
Yeah.
And now I don't like as a nurse and stuff, like I understand.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seemed like he was just so like weak to me and selfish. And so
Well, it was selfishness. You're absolutely right.
in
You're
my
absolutely right.
mind, pot had this ability to like really control people, because why else would someone choose it over their kids? So,
Yeah.
um, but so yeah, I think it definitely things like stick with you for sure.
Mhm. You're very impressionable when you're a kid. That's what people
Yeah,
don't understand. Kids are sponges. They're soaking up everything.
yeah, they
They
do.
see it.
Yeah,
Like they may not be able to understand what it is. Like just like I couldn't understand that he was mad because of a football game, but
right.
in my brain,
Like football made him do it.
subconsciously was like, football is dumb,
Right,
you
right,
know?
right. Yeah, like I don't ever want to be like
Like
that.
I couldn't make that. I couldn't have explained that to you when I was a kid.
Right.
But now as an adult looking back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense now.
that makes sense. Like,
Yeah. And my kids, specifically the twins, like I can't now they're a little bit older, it's fine, but there was years where like I couldn't have any alcohol in the house or around or whatever because they had been in situations where people were drinking when I wasn't around and they had negative experiences with it. They watched that person like change. And
mhm.
so they didn't know if it was maybe they missed the first 4 or 5 drinks that this person had. They just noticed it when they noticed it when the person's already drunk and then they're holding a drink. And so in their minds, they didn't realize that one glass of wine wasn't going to turn mom into a raving
Yeah,
drunk. And
yeah,
so they would just be incredibly nervous if I had a glass of wine. Why are you drinking? What are you doing? And I mean, it just was unnerving to them. And so, I mean, I just had to, I just, and it was fine. I just kept it out of my house or I would have a drink when they were already in bed or when they didn't know I was around. And there was a lot of functions that like I didn't go to. Other people are bringing their kids, but there's a bunch of alcohol around and my kids were just not comfortable around it.
mhm,
And I'm like, I'm just not gonna subject them to that when they already
yeah.
feel this way about it. So yeah,
Did you have to
definitely.
have talks with them about it?
Um,
About that?
I would. I mean, I would say like I'm not, I would to just reassure them not to like talk them into like letting me have a drink, but
Yeah, no, no,
but
no.
yeah,
That's. But I mean, like, we're gonna. Did they kind of grow out of that, or
um,
like, how did you resolve that
so
situation with them?
kind of like just the older they got, they realized that it wasn't like I would be at like a dinner, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm gonna order this drink," and so there was like, and I would just kind of gauge their response, and it just didn't bother them anymore. It was always kind of like a big deal, like, "Oh, mom's having a drink," and um, like they were just shocked by it because it just didn't ever happen. So they could like tell that like it wasn't after that one drink, nothing changed about
Yeah,
me. Then they became
you're not going to become a mean
right, like
whatever it is that they.
yeah,
Yeah,
and so it's yeah. So now I don't think that they care so much. I just don't keep alcohol. I mean, I'm on call with a home health 4 nights a week, and my boss is wonderful, and she's covering for me right now. But I'm on call 4 nights a week throughout the week, and then on the weekends, I was never, I don't know, like back in the day, I didn't know I couldn't like taste the vodka or something, and I would just drink them fast. I could drink four in an hour and a half, and I'd be wasted. And then so like I never knew how to just like have a buzz, and so for me, it was either sober or wasted, and I don't
same
know.
with me.
Yeah, and I don't have any desire for that these days. So I I remember the twins would go to their dad's, and I'd buy a bottle of wine, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a couple of drinks." And I'd sit down and start watching my show, and I would end up with milk instead of wine. Like I'm just like, I don't want wine. I mean,
I
not that I don't.
want
And
milk and
I
cookies.
know. And so I went through this period where I must have gone out with friends during my divorce and when the kids were at their dad's and stuff. I must have gone out with friends, and they thought from this job at the nursing home, I ordered wine, and they're drinking beer and mixed drinks, and I was just drinking wine because I knew how much I don't like beer, and I knew exactly how much alcohol was in that wine and how many I could have, and it was just a safer option for me. And those friends like got it in their heads that I loved wine. And so this one year, I was getting all this wine for my birthday. And so I mean, it was one time like I was doing some sort of like ask the kids all these questions about you. What's my favorite this? What's my favorite that? And it was, what's my favorite like drink? And they were like, wine. And I'm like, what? Why? I'm like, when have you seen me drink wine? And they're like, well, we haven't. You just have a bunch of bottles of it. And I was like, I know, and I haven't opened a single one. Like, I just don't know what to do with it. Like,
They just sit there.
yeah, they just sit there. Like, I just don't feel like it. I don't know, but they're fine with it now. And the youngest one, she doesn't really care, I
Yeah,
think. But her dad's not a big drinker, and she's not affected by it at all. I don't think so. I don't know. They just grew out of it.
that's good.
Yeah, and maybe because I didn't subject them to it
Yeah.
a lot, like. But I I think it's weird for kids, like, to have, like to go to, like, a gathering and all the adults start acting one way, start out the night in one sense, and then
State
a
of
couple
mind.
state of mind, yeah, and then a couple
No, it's
hours
completely
later.
different because now that I don't drink anymore, if I go hang out with people that are drinking at some point in time, I'm like, y'all have a good night.
Yeah,
See you later.
yeah, and I
It's
just
good seeing you. But because you're on this different level. There's just a different level. I
and
don't
it's
care.
hard to explain to people, like, who aren't don't have that perspective or who don't have kids that, I'm like, I just don't want it's not that I'm afraid that this drunk person is gonna say something inappropriate. It's not that I'm afraid that they're gonna, like, whatever, but it's just that I don't know, just I don't like that.
No, because you're right because it normalizes being drunk.
Right.
Like, and as you grow up, like, I mean, I'm not saying this contributed to my alcoholism, but I grew up watching every summer. Like, that's what my parents they would
Mhm.
have drinks, they would
Mhm.
drink beer,
Yeah.
we would have pool parties every weekend, and from they're different at night
Mhm.
than they are
Yeah.
during the day, like because
It
they you
makes
get drunker as the night goes on,
and I just don't know what it does to
and
their psyches.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sure that contributed a little bit to my alcoholism. Be like, oh, it's normal to be drunk,
Right.
you know?
Right.
It's normal to be tipsy. It's normal to want
Right.
to.
To, like, escape and,
Exactly.
and I have had conversations about, like, alcohol and drugs with them, and I'm like, "Listen, the reason people develop addictions is, yes, there's physical addictions that and some people are more prone to it than others. Like, alcoholism is a disease, and addiction is a disease." I'm like, "But
I
also."
disagree with that, but go ahead.
Well, I don't know enough about the science behind it, but
Continue your statement.
my thing, what I tell them is that there's a reason why people like go to it because it's not because the drugs make you feel like shit. It's not because alcohol in the moment makes you feel like shit. Like there's a reason why people are drawn to these things and why,
Dopamine, motherfucker.
right? Like and why they continue to do it because it makes you feel like good. I'm like, but then when you're not, when it wears off, you feel worse than you did before. And then you're constantly chasing it, whether it's cocaine or pot, which pot I really do see as more of like a medicine now. Like I don't have the same relationship,
Absolutely.
like I think that
It's
it,
still a narcotic.
but
I don't think it's addictive like cocaine for
no, and
sure.
it's,
Like,
I mean, honestly, like I feel like marijuana for a lot of people is it's healthier than pain pills. It's healthier than a lot of things. Like I have a different
absolutely.
relationship with it now.
Absolutely.
But like, and alcohol is I think way worse than weed. Like, so I tell them that I'm like, whether it's alcohol or any other kind of drug, like you're gonna be chasing that like forever, and you're gonna feel worse when you're not on it. So just stay away from it. Like, learn those coping mechanisms. Learn to have fun.
Hmm.
Keep having fun without it. Like,
Yeah.
and it's a richer life without it. I think. Plus, my mom struggled with alcoholism when I was young, but my dad didn't, and so I never felt in this situation how I'm going to describe. But when my when Chad and I, so like I said, we known each other since we were 12. We started underage drinking at like 18 or 19, and I remember the first time that he was tipsy and drunk in front of me. I felt so I hated it. And it was like, I think it was because he was like my protector. He was like my person, my stable person. And then he just wasn't. And I hated it. I hated it that he wasn't, I guess it was like
You
subconsciously
couldn't
or
rely
whatever. I
on
couldn't
them.
rely on him. And so I didn't feel that way when my mom would get drunk. It really didn't I don't have negative feelings about that when my mom would drink. And it might have been because my dad was always sober, like I always felt safe. And she was that way. There's no way that my mom would have been like, I'm gonna get wasted and my kids aren't taken care of.
Yeah.
Um, that was her own struggle and it really felt separate from how she mothered us. She wasn't showing up drunk at like school events and well, to my knowledge at least. Like we were always taken care of. But
Mhm.
yeah, I didn't like it. And so I think for my kids, like, I think how I felt when I saw my husband at the time getting drunk and how that made me feel, I can just imagine how that might make my kids feel. And I think they had felt that way in certain situations with adults. And I just never want to make them feel that way. So, and they
Good.
notice the slightest change in your behavior, or your tone, your like demeanor. Kids like pick up on that
Hmm.
big time. So I don't know.
You don't even need alcohol for that.
No.
Like you can just go from being happy to being irritated in your tone.
Yeah. And my daughter, my 10-year-old she's like, she told Ryan the other day, she said, well, I know the cure when mom's getting, I know the trick, however she worded it, when mom's getting stressed out. And she's like, you just give her a hug. And I had noticed that whenever I'd be like getting worked up about something, through the holidays, like we planned a Halloween party and like that was stressful. And like anytime I would get like stressed out about anything, usually directed towards the twins, Hope would just be like, Mom. And I would look at her and she would just give me the biggest hug. And it would just like
Oh,
melting. And I was just,
how fucking
oh.
sweet is
And
that?
she,
That makes me want to cry a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
she was I'm in, like
Uh huh.
she would just like, oh, she's about to lose it. And she just come over and squeeze me real tight. And it would just center me and calm me down. And so she knows when to do it too. Like she'll just, and it works pretty much every time. But she's like, just give her a hug and she'll be okay. I'm like, well, that's one of my love languages. She's right about that. So
Quick little side note. Just that story made me think of this. You know who Sandra Bullock is, right?
yes.
She did a movie called Gravity,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they were filming that, there were times where they were in like the space capsule, which
Mm-hmm.
is a small confined area, and
Yeah.
she would get super stressed out. Well, at the time, they would bring in her baby and like stick it up to the window so she could see it, and that would
Oh,
calm her down.
yeah. It works. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, like it works. It's so like calming when they're and Hope has maintained that. Like
Hmm.
for I told Ryan, I said, I don't know what I'm gonna do if she turns out like the twins like pulling away or like Layla giving me a hard time all the time. And I know she would roll her eyes and say that I give her a hard time, but I'm
You
like,
give me a hard time,
I
mom.
know, man, she can't stand me. Like she can't stand me, but
She is that way because of the way you were to your mother when you were a
maybe
teenager.
I don't know, but I really don't know if
That's what moms, I've always heard moms say, like, "You're gonna have a girl just like you."
I don't know if my mom would, if this would be a revisionist history for my mom, but I heard her just around Thanksgiving. I walked into her having a conversation with Brian talking about how great of a kid I was, and she used the word perfect, and I'm like, Mom, like, but she would say, like,
Whatever.
I know. And I'm like, I couldn't have, I mean, I know we would get into it, but I was a good kid. And she would say, she'll say to me when I complain about Layla, she would say, Tara, you were never like that. And I'm like, I know, Mom. I don't know whose shit I'm reading.
Oh.
This has to be her dad or somebody. But I mean, I definitely Layla and I are a lot alike. I mean, that's what it is that we're just a lot alike. So we butt heads quite a bit. But
I can see how that happens.
yeah,
You get two like-minded individuals together, there's going yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. And the same with Noah and his dad. I think they're the same. And I'll even say like whenever he's like grading me and I can see his dad in him, and his dad is not all bad. He's got a lot of good qualities that Noah did inherit or, whatever. Whether it's nature, nurture, whatever it is. Like but when the things about his dad that would drive me crazy, like creeping from Noah, I'm like, the only solace I have is that I know when Layla's over there with him, she's reminding him of me, driving him just as crazy. So I'm
Mhm.
like thankful for that. But yeah, she's a good kid. She's a really good kid, actually. You just take it out on the person that you trust the most, that you
Well,
feel.
that and I mean, it's I was having a discussion with somebody about, spanking one day, and they were saying how they were against it and whatnot. And I thought about this conversation for like a month, and like it's natural to fight against your parents.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like it's a natural instinct for a teenager, especially 13, 14, when you have hormones, estrogen, like all
Mhm.
that stuff, this new stuff running through you
Yeah.
when you just want to like explode.
Yeah.
It's natural to just fight against your authoritative
Oh,
figure,
for
which
sure.
is your parent,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
They're
know.
trying to figure themselves out and
Yeah.
like and they have learned so much and grown so much. They do know a lot more than they did a few years ago. They just don't realize how much more they have to like learn and grow, and that like if they'll just trust the people that care about them the most, then we'll help them with that. But also I think that I've read too, and this might be like antiquated. I don't know if it's still the science or whatever, but people say that like the males have like this competitiveness with like for head of household with their
Mhm.
dad, and same
It's
with
an
the
alpha
girls.
male thing.
Yeah, and
It's an
same with
alpha
the
thing.
women. The women, like the daughter and mother will like butt
Mhm.
heads for like that head matriarch position or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just
It's a
how it is.
natural
Yeah.
instinct. We're
Yeah.
mammals at the
Right.
end of the day.
Mm. Yeah.
We might be able to have a conversation, you and me, but we're still fucking just mammals.
Yeah. And so I have kind of like learned, I'm like, okay, well, if it's something I really need her to like know or grasp, I'll like go to one of the dads and be like, can you talk to her about this? And maybe she'll take it differently from you than she will from me, because sometimes it just doesn't.
Well, they come across differently too.
Yeah.
Like uh, when I would get something from my mom as opposed to something from my dad, it came differently.
Oh, yeah.
It comes across differently.
Yeah.
Males to male is usually a little bit more aggressive than
Mhm.
female to male.
Yeah.
It's just the way the hierarchy is.
Mhm.
Like, you're a boy, suck it up,
Right.
kind of.
Yeah.
And then mom's like, oh, sweetheart, come here. It's going
Yeah.
to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I think so too.
it's natural instincts.
I think we definitely are more like,
Can't ignore those, I don't think.
and we do want to like, as mothers, like we want to like coddle in some aspect, but I too, like, I've always been like very like aware that like I want to be their friend, but I also have to be their mom, and I have to teach them, like, if I'm not going to teach them, like, to be respectful and to, like, behave a certain way. If I don't discipline them, like who else is going to, like
Well, that's my argument for like spanking. Like you have to discipline.
yeah. Oh,
You
100%.
have to.
Mhm. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're gonna get this person who's never been disciplined their
Yeah.
whole life, like physically disciplined. I'm not saying you got to beat the shit out of your kid,
Right.
but a few pops on the ass ain't gonna hurt.
Right. Yeah.
You know, a
No.
few pop because once I got popped on the ass, I was like, oh wait, she's serious.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, hang on.
And I was listening to like a sermon podcast, and they were talking about like the using it as a discipline. Like this is
Hmm.
your discipline. It's not in the moment of like emotion, like high emotion, but as a discipline. Like if you do this, then you're gonna get spanked. And just I think responding, whether it's physical or not, I think responding to them as a discipline, but not out of emotion is important,
Hmm.
period. Like, and I lose control, like, you know, love my emotions where I'm like, I'll raise my voice and I'll yell, but that's never effective, like ever. So sometimes I do have to just be like, I'm just going to walk away from this and I'll come back. In fact, the bigger instances of parenting and discipline, I do have to like, we're going to sit down and have a very calm conversation about this because that's way more effective in discipline and learning and everything. But the sermon podcast that's what it was about. He was talking about his son had stolen or done something, and he just told him, "You're going to get a spanking, and it's not because I'm mad at you. It's because like spare the rod, spoil the child, or whatever it is." But yeah, that it's just using it as a discipline,
Yeah.
negative reinforcement or whatever. Like, so they learn that way.
I mean, negative reinforcement can be a tool. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
it can be very harmful, but it can also
Right.
be a positive tool.
And I think you have to do it at a younger like age
Hmm.
because they're so when they're just learning
Yeah,
very
no,
like basic
you
primal.
can't start when they're a teenager and they
Right.
start.
Right.
You gotta start at a younger age
Yeah.
when a little pop like makes
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. And that were and I really never, I mean, I think maybe twice I actually like spanked them. But
Yeah,
yeah, the pops and getting their attention and flicks in the ear and
like
like
if you say something extremely absurd, I've been slapped across the face.
mhm.
You know what I don't say anymore?
Right.
Extremely absurd things to my freaking mother.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And teaching them respect.
Like it didn't hurt me, it didn't disable me, it didn't
No.
deform me.
No.
It
No.
made me think.
Right. Yeah. And I think I did drop the ball on that because man, Noah can have a mouth on him. I mean, not like cussing at me or whatever, but this might also be because he spends so much time online, but he's like loses his ability, he's lost his ability or hasn't worked on it, his tone with people. Like
Mhm.
he really won't mean it shitty, but man, he's got a shitty tone. And I'm
Mm.
like, Noah. And I mean, there have been times where I'm just like, I can tell that he's genuinely shocked that he's getting in trouble. And he's like, I really didn't mean anything. And I'm like, you need to listen to yourself. Like, listen to your tone. Like,
I'll do that with young men that I don't even know. Like
yeah,
if they say something, I'm like, "What'd you just say?" Like I'll look at them like, "What? What?"
right.
I've done it with Cohen a few times where he he said something and I was like, "What did you just say to me? You better
Right.
change how you like worded that.
Right.
Add some politeness to it."
Yeah. Just like change that tone. The way it's coming across is so I mean, and he didn't get a lot of like corporal punishment at all. But man, it really is. I wish there was like an actual like handbook, a good one. Maybe I didn't read enough parenting. But you have to change it constantly.
Mhm.
You're constantly having to change your methods. Like you cannot parent them the same as toddlers as you do now. And then also from kid to kid, it's different. And so
Mhm.
I feel like that as soon as I feel like I get it, like one aspect of the parenting thing, like down, and that we're moving past it. They've grown out of it. And we're gonna do something else now. So but I mean, I'm hanging in there. And like I said, I continuously get good reports from other people. So,
That's good.
I mean,
That's good.
I hope so. We'll see. We'll see.
Mhm.
And I try to remind myself that it's a lifelong thing.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they are going to go out in the
They're going to
world.
be shaped by other people by besides you as well. Like
Yeah.
that's the old like it takes a village to raise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're going to be shaped by the world around them and their friends
Mhm.
and their girlfriends and
Yeah.
their, you know,
Yeah.
like.
They're constantly
They
learning.
got to get their heart broken. You got to feel that pain, that
Yes.
gut punch that fucking sucks
We
balls.
I went through that with them in the same year. Both the twins got their hearts broken. Now, Layla, she didn't take it seriously. It wasn't that she thought she was going to marry him or she just loved him so much and missed him, but it was the way that he went about it was really hurtful and hateful
Ooh,
and like kind of shocking. Like,
very rude.
yeah, he was pretty terrible about it. So that was upsetting to her. But yeah, Noah, I mean, like I said, goes in 110% and was in love. And so when they broke up, that was hard for him. But I mean, they came out of it and I was just thankful he talked to me about it and he had a good little support system with his friends that understood. So, but man, yeah, knowing what's ahead of them is just I hate thinking about it. I'm glad Hope is taking her time growing up because I don't have to worry about that for a little while with her. But she's also so happy-go-lucky, man. I can't imagine her ever getting her heart broken.
And it happens to the best of us.
I know.
It happens to the best of people.
I know.
It always seems like the nicest ones are the ones that get screwed over the worst.
Yeah, 100%.
Nice guys finish last.
Yeah. But you have a good prize at the end. I mean,
That's
gosh.
true. No, I mean life is a marathon. Like I would not trade anything that's happened in my life because my life wouldn't be what it is to like a
Right.
had I never met Audra and gone through that relationship, I never would have met my wife.
Right.
I never would have fallen into the depression that I was in, let myself dwindle in it, whatever it may have been, started
And can
drinking,
you
like
imagine if you'd have let it change you? Like, if you would have let it change, like, who you are and how you
yeah,
treated people, like, you wouldn't have ended up with somebody like Rachel. Like,
yeah.
like, you'd have ended up with probably somebody like Audra.
I don't think Audra's a bad person.
No. Well, I remember not
I,
liking her.
well, that's because you were trying to sleep with me.
Well, it's because she was mean to you.
Uh-huh.
She was. I met you after you guys had broke up, and I actually never met her.
Was it at you met me like right after that happened.
Yeah,
That's when we met, wasn't it?
she had just broken up with you, and
Oh wow.
yeah, so you were so sweet and kind and like just such a like good person, and I mean, so I was
Yeah.
getting one side of the story.
Yeah, you were. You were a little biased.
I was. I just thought you were the nicest
But I
person.
mean, she was like I was 25. She was 20, just turned 21.
Oh,
Like
she was very young.
she well,
I mean,
I wasn't ready to get married. I didn't know it at the time. I just knew that I loved her, whatever, and I had no right asking this 21-year-old who is just now able to go to the bar, like,
right.
to
Yeah.
marry
So
me. Like
sorry to Audra.
it's not like the way she went about it was shitty.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, like that hurt.
Yeah.
Uh,
But
but
gosh, we all do.
like, I mean, we all do stupid things. I've done stupid things. I've slept with married women. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
like I've done some shitty things.
Yeah.
Like we're
Well,
not all perfect,
I
you
did
know.
have to apologize, even if she probably I don't know if she listens or not, but I didn't like her back then, but just because she like hurt you. But I was very immature back then, like as
Well,
far
I
as
didn't like her back then because she hurt me too. So
yeah. Well,
it took me years to forgive her.
mhm. But yeah, yeah. Well, point was is if you had let it make you truly jaded and change how you like
Yeah,
treated people in the world, you wouldn't have ended up with somebody great.
exactly,
So
exactly.
I'm glad that
I
you
ended
didn't.
up with the woman that I was supposed to end up with,
I think
for
so
sure.
too.
And that's very apparent with whenever you buy my book and read the chapter, you'll know why.
I can't wait then. I'm excited. I'll definitely read it.
It's called Road Construction Ahead.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
It's almost 7 o'clock. So
Mhm.
I end the same way.
Yeah.
You haven't listened to any of my podcasts.
I haven't. I
It's all right.
haven't.
It's all right. So the way I end every podcast is the same. What is something that you've learned in life?
Mm,
What is a piece of advice that you could give people?
gosh. Should have given me a heads up. I would have thought about it.
That's what makes it better.
Just off the cuff. I I think just like love is an important part of life, but I think what has gotten me through it gotten me through the hard times more than anything is just grace. I mean, just show yourself grace, show other people grace. Like if you can, I try to make that like my goal is just
What do you mean by grace?
um
And people can interpret grace in many different
so
ways.
I went through the opposite of expecting perfection. Like just when people are imperfect, when you are imperfect, just show yourself grace, forgiveness, understanding, and patience. Like just give people grace to be like human and yourself grace. Like like set goals and whether it's like in your the type of person you want to be or if it's your career or whatever, like have your goals and always want to be like growing, but give yourself grace that you're gonna stumble sometimes and that doesn't define you and it doesn't define other people.
Is there a time that you've given yourself grace?
I've learned to give myself grace. Yes.
Like, is there a specific one though? Like
Probably
something that
no. I can tell you that I am working on giving myself grace in my parenting and in my having cheated on my husband. I mean, I have to like actively give myself grace for certain moments, like remind myself
Mhm.
to show myself grace. It doesn't come naturally like to me to to show myself grace. I show other people grace continuously. I mean, I really do. Like I tend to be a very understanding, like, oh, I understand why you did that. And like person. So what I've been working on is I try to give myself the same grace that I give other people, but finding that balance of like bettering yourself while like not being too hard on yourself and showing
Mhm.
yourself grace is a really hard thing to master that I haven't mastered yet. But um
I think that's what life's about, though.
yeah,
It's finding that.
yeah, I think
You
so. I
know,
hope so. Yeah. So that's all I got. Like that's advice I
that's
can
it. Give yourself grace, girl.
give. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being here.
Of course.
I
It's so
thoroughly enjoyed it.
me
Everybody,
too.
this is Tara Cory, by the way. I've never actually introduced you. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's all right.
But thank you. Thank you for stepping in and doing this. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
So fun.
I
Thank
know.
you.
Everybody have a good night. If you're listening right now, have a good night. If you're listening later, have a good whatever time of day it is.